All right, I would like to call to order the Romeo Downtown Development Authority rescheduled regular meeting for Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 2 p.m. Can I do a roll call, or can you do a roll call
Sure.
for me, Elizabeth?
Yep, Tar.
Here.
St. Laurent. Here. Lee.
Here.
Poznansky.
Here.
Hutnick.
Here.
McLeod is not here. Hayes.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Next, can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up, we need an approval of the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make it.
Motion by Tar, do we have a second?
Support.
Support by Poznansky, all in favor? Aye. We have approval of the agenda. Next up, we need approval of the minutes. We'll do it one by one here because there were 3 meetings. First up, we have the April 3rd, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Motion by Lee, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by St. Laurent, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Next up, we have the April 13th, 2023 Budget Workshop Special Meeting Minutes. That was the first budget meeting workshop. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Lee, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Hutnick, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, approval for the April 18th Budget Workshop Special Meeting Minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Lee. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by St. Laurent. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have our approval of the minutes. Next up, we have public forum. If anybody would like to speak, they're welcome to come up to the podium at this time.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Rauch, and I am a volunteer music coordinator with the Romeo DDA. I live in Washington, but I feel like I'm a part of the Romeo community. Our parks and recs are connected. Our library system is connected. So isn't that the whole idea behind that? That we should feel like we are a community, that we're connected, that we should feel a part of this wonderful village of Romeo. I do. I have since I moved here 5 years ago, and especially in the past year or so when I have been given wonderful opportunities to volunteer, not only myself, but also to engage young people to share their music, people in their 20s, 30s, and even in their 80s to share their music with the community of Romeo. And they have returned again and again to share their music, to give their gift of time and talents to the Romeo community because they believe that it is really special. And I think that's something that everybody does understand here. And I want to thank the people, some of you here that have come to the events where high school students have shared their music. We had a 13-year-old that shared his music. People from different communities. Eisenhower High School had several people come and share their music. People from different organizations, music organizations, have come to share their music. Thank you so much for coming, if not for anything else, but to support those young people especially, and people like me who have rediscovered their love of music and are looking for ways to really be a part of very special communities like Romeo. Thank you, thank you, thank you. but where was everyone else? I'm just asking, because these were wonderful people who were sharing, wonderful people who were volunteering, high school students from Romeo High School who were sharing their time and talents because they wanted to get points for NHS. There are already these remarkable people who have these remarkable goals. And I think it is so very special that they came here to share. And it's special that Elizabeth and Madison are there to reach out to these people and to say, come and share we appreciate you sharing your gifts of time and talents in the downtown Romeo area. Everyone's been a high school student at one time, and you know that is where it started, right? That is where your desire for volunteering, for sharing those gifts, that is where it starts in high school, and that's where you really feel you find direction in your life. So whatever happens, please support these young people, especially in their efforts to share these time and talents. Main Street and the CBD are important gateways to the city. We all know that. This corridor plays a significant role in establishing the community's image in the mind of residents and visitors. It is a heavily trafficked area as it's a major connection from the north and the south. That's a gift. That's one of Romeo's gifts. Curb appeal, functional efficiency, and business vitality are a priority. And Elizabeth and Madison have addressed this with flying colors. Madison is a vital part of the accomplishments. She's been a vital part of these accomplishments since her arrival. Where is the support for her? She is a young person who has come to Romeo as her first big job, and she has found out that her job is slated for to be removed. And when did she find out? She found out at a meeting that she was present at.
You have 1
Nobody
minute.
approached her beforehand. I think that doesn't show respect, it doesn't show appreciation, it's just bad business, and it's not very kind. Where is the kindness in all of this? Elizabeth has found a wonderful place, a wonderful office for her offices, for the DDA offices. Where is the appreciation for that? Instead of nitpicking that pennies about what she needs to make that happen, where's the appreciation for this wonderful place? Where's the comparison with what it would have cost her if there had been another scenario? This is a beautiful office space that has been furnished through the kindness of...
That's time.
Oh, I didn't know there was a time
Yeah,
limit, sir.
5 minutes per person.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that announced beforehand?
No, that's just the rules of the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you very much for your ear, and I hope that I've maybe touched on things that have made you think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do just want to clarify something.
Yes.
Madison's position was not eliminated. It was just not increased to full-time, just in case there was.
Okay.
Okay, just so you're aware.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wasn't aware of that. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you here. Good afternoon. I am Tricia LaValle. I am a resident, parent, teacher, and volunteer. In the last 18 months, I've been closely involved with most of you on the DDA. Working alongside Elizabeth and Madison has been incredibly rewarding and fun. I literally responded to a random Facebook post that was out there about Winterfest in 2022 back in November, jumped in head first to spearhead the volunteer spreadsheet along with Madison, Learning as I went, Elizabeth and Madison taught me about the geography of our village, various laws, common practices, and the overall order of operations to planning and carrying out all of our fests. We hold our weekly meetings every Tuesday. It's now and we go around and introduce everyone. We review our plans, we ask and answer questions, we strategize, we network, and overall, we work together. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to many business owners in town. I've made good relationships with them. I was under the impression that the DDA was a link between the residents, the businesses, and the communities surrounding Romeo. I love that. I like going into the stores and the restaurants and saying, hi Zach, hi Marty, hi John, hi everyone. I always knew that it was most important to know people's name, and I do now, and I'm Tricia. So, not only did I work to plan the events, but I surely enjoyed them as well with most of you. Seeing familiar faces, helping out wherever possible has always been the goal. Recently, however, I've had to step back from this. I felt a severe shift away from our friendly, positive, comfortable atmosphere and our meetings. We used to have 10 to 12 people during the day, and then our nightly meetings that we had 20, I can remember, at least at the Christmas one. Now we're fewer than 10 in both settings, possibly even combined, and I was concerned about that. I didn't know how to inspire more positive involvement. Elizabeth surely kept up with our communication, emails, texts, phone calls, answering to anything when I called her. She continued to hold that community as her priority by planning Winterfest, Springfest, even though our pool became more shallow. Elizabeth and Madison, neither of them have ever once faltered in their obvious drive to make Romeo a true community. With her experience, knowledge, personality, and professionalism, she has shined brightly, heading up these events, projects, and numerous improvements in town. I've enjoyed my times in the meetings, planning and attending things with both Elizabeth and Madison, and our community, even and especially our visitors from out of town, have benefited and would truly be blessed to have Elizabeth's role continued as the DDA Executive Director. As just a volunteer, I have felt valued, I have felt appreciated, but I do not like feeling unsteady or clueless about what the goals of our community are. What is the plan for the DDA? What are the big picture goals for some of our big projects? Who is going to carry out those plans? Why is a change in leadership leading to such upheaval? If the point is to dissolve the DDA, what then? If the point is to eliminate Elizabeth as the director, why? Who is better suited? Who has more drive? Who can do it better? As a vested community member and passionate volunteer, I do not understand why there is such hostility, tension, and secrecy in our small town with a big heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Betty Cassidy. I'm a resident and a volunteer. I am speaking today on behalf of Gail Bentley, who has sent many emails. She cannot be here because she is homebound and bedridden, as much as she would like to be here, trust me. I am reading an email that she was wondering what she needed answers to, and the people that she has asked cannot give answers. Now, it says that she would like a copy, because everyone wants, was it when you sent out all your letters?
FOIA?
Transparency. Sorry, transparency. Transparency, you guys all want it. We would like it as well. There is a copy of the letter that Gail has requested, which was taken around to the restaurant owners to sign regarding the food trucks. Number 2 is a list of businesses who have agreed to take over community events that you mentioned at the second budget meeting of the DDA. That's the only one I missed, personally. The executive meeting that the executive director would no longer need to oversee. Questions for you, and I believe this was sent to Ms. Hutnick. Why was your name included on the post on the door in regards to the Saturday meeting? I do not know what that is reference to. When going around to restaurants regarding food truck, did you also check with other businesses who sold merchandise, since there was also merchandise vendors? Number 3, why are public figures allowed to use DDA logo in advertisements? Would this be considered a DDA endorsement? I look forward to your response. Have a great day. On the 7th, Ms. Hutnick wrote back, Gail, any questions you may have should be directed to Elizabeth Miller. Thank you. And then on the 8th at 10:07, Ms. Hutnick said, I do not know you and refuse to answer these questions, exclamation point. I didn't want to yell. Please feel free to come to a meeting and ask me directly. And Ms. Bentley replied, wow, this is the response citizens receive from appointed officials. This is unacceptable. Gail Bentley. I didn't go to the first couple of meetings, so I don't know all of what the food truck entitles or all of the tension between everyone. I've been up here a couple times. I do like the direction that the DDA is going when it is working as a functional group. I would like to know some of these things that Ms. Bentley did address. And I understand that we can ask questions of elected officials, but not of the DDA. That is concerning me. And I understand some people get threats and different things like that, but most of you would probably know Gail if you saw her. She was very involved in the town and in many, many organizations when her children were younger and she was healthy. I think that's all I have to say right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Ruth Heidebreck, 354 Salem Drive South, Romeo, Michigan. I'm a resident of Washington, Romeo, and a business owner, and I've also been working with the DDA for about 8 years. I have the same question. I said several things I've got to cover here, but I have the same question and concern about moving the festivals to a business. One, I've been involved in it, like I said, for 8 years, and I've never seen a business in our locale have the time, energy, resources, and frankly, money to run something like that, and to have time to run, because I'm also involved in the volunteer meetings. We have a designated employee that goes to all the meetings also, and there is a lot of work and a lot of fundraising and a lot of resources that need that. So I caution you in that. But I am also interested in knowing who these businesses are, because we work with most all the businesses in this community, and I don't know of any. So the other point I would really like to address is on the February 6th meeting, there was a statement made by a new board member during that meeting at minute mark 20:03. And it was during the time when Megan was talking about the Arbor Day and being in another park. And I'm very much involved in the village park, as you all know. And when rumors fly, it hurts those businesses and it hurts those projects. And one of the board members, Marty Hutnick, who's my next door neighbor in business, stated that she didn't think that the park was safe for people because we didn't pull permits. And I'm just, I know I'm not supposed to be addressing you directly, but I'm your next door neighbor. If you ever heard that, I would have appreciated you giving me a call or coming on over, because then we got people calling us and leaving us messages. And I just need that to be clear, that at no time did we ever not pull permits for the village park. The village park, because it's classified as a park, has different rules and laws for pulling permits. We were working very closely with Bomarito and Megan, and we were in a transition because President Posnanski was just coming in. So there was a little bit of miscommunication till everybody got set in their positions. But at no point did we ever not do the proper thing to pull permits. In fact, we overbuilt everything that we did because we're building a 100-year park. And at no time should the word be said, it's unsafe for people to go to the park, because it never has been unsafe. We have always been on time, and we've always made sure that the safeguards are put into place. So I just wanted to bring that
Can
up.
I answer that?
Sure.
So it was a question, it wasn't a statement, because the rumor needed to come to a halt, and what better place to do it than in front of everybody?
But then it
So
wasn't
we could.
addressed. It was just put out there. You said, I
Because-
heard.
I had heard.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was wondering, is that the truth or is it not? I didn't know, that's why I was asking.
Then I'm here to tell you the truth.
Well, honestly, yep, good, thank you.
You're welcome. Also,
You have 1 minute, Ruth.
okay, also, briefly, the rumor that I own a landscaping company. I'm not donating $200,000. I'm getting myself paid back. I don't own a landscaping company. We all know who's doing the park, and that was another rumor that was brought up, not by you.
I was gonna say, the
Not
park
by you.
looks beautiful, by the way, it really does.
Thank you, thank you. And in conclusion, I'm just looking at more information to come from this board if things are going to be changed. You do have my letter in your packet, so you do know my concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ruth. Anybody else for public comment at this time? All right, thank you, guys. We'll be moving on to the financial report, presentation by Executive Director Elizabeth Miller. The floor is yours.
Sure. So just reading from the packet, statements year-to-date from July 1 to April 24th, 2023. A month was closed prior to the end of the month due to the timing of the board meeting. All transactions are included with the exception of interest income. Revenue collected was $13,411 to the Bruce Township TIFA and $224 from March interest income. Bills presented in your packet are $2,396.97. There is no credit card payment due to the cutoff was April 24th, so the billing, actually, they're here if you want to see copies for next month's. It shows work completed. I think for sake of time, Zach, I won't read through everything if that's okay.
Yep.
Also, at the request of the board, I have included attached detailed list of expenses for the account 721.000, office capital expenditures, and there's an update in there since the meeting got changed. I went ahead and included that update with your supplemental packets. We anticipate this account will close under budget by 6/30/23. As of right now, I'm $2,500 under. Someone let me know that they thought that there would be an additional request of an additional $8,000, and that was never something that would have come from my office at all. So I'm very pleased to that. The previous month's bank statement is also attached, as was recommended or requested by last month. And then I'd also like to just point out, if you look at the end of the financials, you'll notice the addition that was included regarding the ledger account 721.000, the office capital expenditures, because this was what came from Plant Moran and from our bookkeeper, they didn't credit out the one check. So it looks like there was a double payment of $27.65 or $27.95.46, which is not true. There's an email is included from Plant Moran, and then. Yep, that's it. So the other part will come under my director's report. So that's it. Is there any questions?
All right, can we get a motion to approve the payment of the bills through April 24th, 2023 in the amount of $2,396.97?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Rose. Do we have a second? I will second. Elizabeth, can you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Hutnick?
No.
Okay. Tar?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Poznansky?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
St. Laurent?
No.
Okay, motion carries. Next up, Elizabeth, Director's report, please.
Sure. So the Chamber TNT bi-monthly meetings are continuing to be held at the DDA office. They're a hit. This week, their numbers doubled from the last meeting. This would have been 2 weeks ago. They're going to be providing K-Cups so their members can contribute to the coffee mess. We are thankful for that. Members and partners, and they are members and partners in the community as well as PDCU. Extra Credit Union Little Library on the former Marketplace Alley. Please see the attached correspondence. They would like to relocate that to Parker Alley, as it is no longer, safe, obviously, for it to be in that reopened alley. As Extra Credit Union is one of our regular event sponsors, finding a workable solution is best for all. I understand this would need to go to Village Council for approval. Would that be correct, Megan? To put up something else in one of the alleys in the village space?
I was going to go on village property, yes.
Okay, so if the board were to, I guess I could ask more questions at the end. There's still a need for a larger conversation regarding the Central Business District businesses and employee parking. I mentioned this in last month's board packet. In addition, we should consider seeking input from the village in regards to parking enforcement, more time limits, signage, et cetera. We have not received any communication from Village Hall since the last board meeting, and so I am looking for board direction in regard to this area. 2 of the light poles, the DTE-owned light poles, all the ones in the Village Park, those are owned by DTE. They have tags on the bottom of them. This is something that I've coordinated in the past. In the fall, I found out, again, from Jason, are not from Earth Environments. There was another issue with that. They are now fixed and fully functional. The peace poles that were installed on private property within the CBD, they look great. It's a pleasure to work with Grace, Vinay, and the area businesses to complete this collaborative project. They are very creative and distinct, and it's a nice addition to our downtown. Also in my director's report, you'll see there's an 8th-page advertisement in the upcoming Chamber of Commerce directory. This was reviewed with Chair Hayes back in January. The DDA has been members of the Chamber for decades, and to my knowledge, this is the first ad that's ever been placed in a well-used and circulated directory, and you'll see that's attached. From the MDA, as you know, Downtown Management Series is still available. Volunteers could even do it under our membership, so there's no extra cost. Website collaboration with our contracted provider Verona Creative is well underway. The report is attached, an email from her. And regarding the new office space, I'm pleased to announce our renovation and office setup is under budget by approximately $2,000. While a few more items need to be purchased, we will stay under the approved budget of $20,000. In addition, we are well over $80,000 in donations and in-kind sponsorships. That does include the 5-year lease that's only marked at $10,000 a year per the lease. That does not include any of the furnishings or all of the electronic equipment that is actually being installed right now in our offices. So I'm very pleased to report that. So you'll find the draft copy of both the expenses and the donated amounts. It will be fully updated and completed to be included in the June board packet. The new office space is nearly complete. We've been on the receiving ends of both monetary, in-kind, volunteer times, and so much more. The custom cabinets are almost installed. I guess there were rumors that we paid $14,000 for cabinets. We didn't. It was $1,183. And so we are quite happy. There is a master craftsman who created them, and he would like to remain anonymous. And this was done well below the material cost. If you're curious about the name of the company that he works for, it's stamped inside the doors, but they are not looking for more business because they're swamped. So, but they truly are beautiful pieces. The countertop was installed also under cost by Romeo Kitchen and Bath. Additional artwork has been put up by First Street Photography, and the upholstered chairs were cleaned just recently, so that's been nice. Cleaning service is also provided for free, which we are grateful for, and just the more and more that I could read about, obviously for the sake of time, I won't. Wi-Fi should be happening soon. Our open house, there's invitations over there. It's next Tuesday, and we're very, very happy about just all the donations that have come in even for that. So pleased for that. Our flower contracts, those should be installed. I talked to Jusco's today. They should be installed the week of the 20th, hopefully. And solution still needs to be had for replacing that hydrangea tree. And then I've also included the list of accomplishments, and I would like to see that be added to my my personal file, which would be really helpful. As you can see there, the office expenditures is attached. There's a few things that are highlighted that are still outstanding. the email from Verona Creative and Extra Credit Union, so I'm not sure what direction you all want me to go in regards to the little library for that space. I think that's probably the only one at this exact moment that needs a response from you all.
I'll give my 2 cents on that, and I do see the letter here from Extra Credit Union, and that's a great little library. I'm just gonna bring up, I mean, they're requesting Parker Alley, and of course, we should consider what their request is, it's their library. I keep going back to our southwest quadrant, I would just love to get more stuff going on down there, and I don't know what's public property down there, and what's not, but my suggestion, maybe something in the southwest. Parker just got the artwork, you know, the vow artwork was great from last summer, maybe we need to try to find an additional spot to try to draw some people.
There's that space where it's got the old stand, but it's like some historical information, but it's so sun damaged and has not been updated in years. It's a little like almost in the beds over there.
Are you talking about across from Hands Financial?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, so that would be the southwest quadrant that John's referencing. That might be a good space for it.
Yeah, in there or in the other center that is, I don't know the name, Morton, there's some condos down there. And an alley, Patton. Is there public space there, or is that all, that's Patton Alley anyway?
From my understanding, it's an actual public alley, but the condo says what happens in there and doesn't
Well,
happen there.
there's a small
There's
grassy
two possible
area
areas
in
in
the
that
back there as
southwest
well.
quadrant, just an idea. But you're asking for direction, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, I like either one of those thoughts. I think we should maybe pick the Parker Alley because that's what the sponsor has requested, and then give an alternate space over in that southwest quadrant that we were talking about, and let the village make the final selection.
I think there's a lot of foot traffic in through Parker, and so that's what they were looking, is to
Yeah.
have, you know,
Well, that makes
obviously the
sense.
foot traffic
Yeah.
to be able to.
Which, again, to my point, let's get some foot traffic in some other areas.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
up to.
But
I mean,
again, if
their-
it's up to them, it's
Because there
their-
might be a
their
reason why
boat.
not to put
Yeah.
it in one place versus the other, and it's not our space, so I think giving those two options as recommendations and letting the village decide which one makes the most sense would probably be appropriate since it's their space.
Yeah, I can definitely take whichever or both or however you want to do it to the council. My only thought I want to throw out to you guys is when we had the peace polls brought to the village council, they asked for a cohesive plan of art, and I would consider this some sort of, a form of art. And I have yet to see a cohesive plan, so I can take it to them.
Okay.
Just be cautious on what their answer might be, considering they've asked for something and nothing has been produced yet into the whole concept of the forethinking of where, the plan of stuff, not just sticking things places. So
Yeah,
just throwing that out there.
That makes sense. Maybe we should have almost like a heat map for existing art, since there is so much of it now, and it'd be easier at a glance to see on a map where it's at and what spaces need more presence downtown, so it doesn't all end up in one corner. We've got all the peace poles now, there's already the existing artwork in Parker Alley over there. We've got the mural, we've got Starkweather obviously has a few different art projects there, so it might be a good idea at this point to put something like that together. I don't know if.
When we have the PACER studies, we could pull where, there's the least amount of traffic,
Okay.
correct? Is that how the PACER study works?
You mean the
the
Placer
AI
AI,
data?
the
Yeah.
Placer AI data?
Yeah.
They do not track foot traffic specifically, no.
It's just general traffic to.
General
in
traffic
and out of the
Okay.
town,
in and out of
right?
it. Mhm.
Okay.
I think what I would say to that is, I understand the council's request as far as more of a long-term plan and vision, which we would all love to have. Some of it might not be realistic though, because we don't know what we're gonna have the opportunity to get and to put. I think Zach's idea of, let's at least map out what exists now, and then even though we're gonna put a little library, or we're gonna put a what have you in this location in 10 years, because who knows, at least we can say, we understand there's not a lot going on here, there's a lot going on here. Whatever does come up next, we're gonna try to steer it towards this area. So maybe, maybe that would be something that would help the council answer that question. We're not gonna be able to sit down and, even in a 30-day period of time, and say, here's what's gonna happen in the next 10 years. I wish we could.
Yeah, that's a good,
So kind of a combination of answering that question by doing, here's where we are now, we're gonna work on getting other areas, here's a start. We can maybe put this in one of those holes. Loaded question, Elizabeth, it probably is not information already exists in your hands as far as where are our art projects?
No,
on
we've
public-
created all kinds of things in 19 months, but that is not one
Right.
of them.
So, I mean, that's why I figured that would be the answer, so I don't know if that's something, actually, I'll throw this out there, as maybe one of our pillars should start right there. Let's
Design
put this
pillar.
map together. It's certainly gonna help that information that Elizabeth's probably gonna be asked for here, whether it's by us or by council. The answer to this question regarding the little library, what's the urgency of that? Do you need that, like, right now, because it's gotta get?
Well, they're one of
Where
our
is it right
sponsors
now?
for 3 upcoming events. They
Yeah.
asked for a refund on a recent one, and so they're a little disheartened.
Where is
So-
this right now, the existing?
It is, Ron White took it out of the current alley, and he has it just on his property inside storage, just to protect it.
So speaking for myself, I want to give you the answer right now, so you can go back to them and say,
Thank you.
here it is. Unfortunately, the way this works, I don't have the authority to do that. We can put in our 2 cents, and then it's got to go to council, so.
I think it's important to remember, this is something, the placemaking ideas that I brought to you all,
Yeah.
soon after taking on this position. And placemaking is not meant to be permanent. We're not erecting the Eiffel Tower here. It's something that isn't even cemented into the ground, unlike even the peace poles, those were cemented in. This doesn't have to be cemented in. So it literally could be pulled up, when it isn't.
But we don't want to do that either,
Yeah,
because we're
sure.
already moving it once.
Of course,
We don't want it to.
yeah, of course. So whatever you all
And-
decide is
And
just
also, you
fine.
understand, my answer to that is,
Yeah.
we're not making that decision. It's got to go to village council. So let's give village council the tools that they need. Can we please,
I would need that by literally tomorrow is the cutoff for information for Monday's meeting.
Well, it's only 2:37 right now, guys, so.
Is it fair to go to council and at least ask the question, here's what we're thinking, this is what we want to do? and
Yes,
we-
I can put it on there,
and we
absolutely, but I'm
do-
saying for your map of what you're talking
Right,
about.
right. And we can
if
let
you
them
wanna
know
get it
this is
done in
our
that-
plan we're going to do, is put a map together, we're starting to work on it.
Yep.
And
Okay.
see what they say.
Yep.
So we want to put it in Parker Alley with second choice being
Southwest.
southwest
Quadrant.
You want the, across from Hans, is that what we're?
Zach,
Yeah,
could I get
replace it
in?
with the existing damaged,
Across from,
the
Well, no,
photo with
with Tito's,
information on it, yeah.
Zach, could I
Are
get
we
an
in
email
agreement?
requesting an item and what it would be?
Yep.
the other thing, Elizabeth, I'm trying to pick out some things, first of all, that are some meaningful progress on some projects, because there has not been enough. Oh, replacement, you've got the planner in front of Masonic, and you mentioned somewhere here in your report, you are still waiting on some direction. What do we need to do to give Elizabeth some direction to get something in that planner? The weather's changing, let's do something.
I can just pick something. I mean,
Can we just pick something and let's get it done?
She's our director, I think she can handle it.
Yeah, so I just want to answer her question here. You need some direction. I propose, let's pick something. Is it, I don't know what the best,
I mean, I can handle doing that. I just know the pillars have been created, and there's been a lot of talk about people doing various things, so I'm unclear what you all want me to do moving forward, so that's why I'm asking for direction.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's related to the flower and water contract, obviously, and that's already kind of been in place, so whatever you decide to put in there, in my opinion, is fine with this board.
Okay, thank you.
sorry, last thing here. You referenced, office approval of a budget of $20,000, and currently you are under, which is great. Thank you very much for, I know that takes hard work to come in under budget. You're addressing $80,000 in donations and in-kind sponsorships. This is, you're saying in here, am I reading this correctly, will be finalized in our June packet?
Yes, because like right now you'll see
detail?
it says draft on it because
Right.
there's still a few numbers that are out there. Like I don't have a value on any of the furnishings or the IT equipment. Also, one of our, our plumber, he wasn't able to get back to me on what the value of his in-kind donation for the labor part of it is. So it's an estimate. So before I close that out, I want to make sure that those are final numbers.
So these in-kind donations, as you're calling them, and I
Yes.
understand based on the lease, 50,000 of what we're talking about is the lease.
Correct.
What would have been a lease, right? So,
What is a lease, correct?
if you do the math there, that's $30,000.
50. It's a 5-year lease. It's 10,000 a year.
No, I'm sorry, I know. So I take
Oh,
the 50
okay.
out of the
Yes.
80 that you're talking about, I'm left with 30. So really, 30,000 in-kind donations, plus the 20 that we budgeted, is what, when we're all said and done, that office will mean to us. Is that a fair statement? I mean,
Yes and no. I mean, yes, yes, sure.
in my business, I'm looking at total dollars. I understand some of them are cash, some of them were given, some of them
We
are
would not have
donations, some
spent
of-
that $30,000, at all. There's no way we would have spent $50,000 to renovate that space, if that's what you're saying. Not at all. But I wanted to record for you accurately
Okay.
what all of the donations are, the monetary, these aren't numbers I made up, these are numbers that donors and sponsors have provided. So that's why I wanted to include that for you. Does that help?
It helps. I just want to make sure when we throw out a number of $80,000, plus 20 that was budgeted, which is $100,000, it's clear we didn't spend $100,000.
I see what you're
Because
saying.
that's the way this is read. That's the way, I'm sorry, this is the way I interpret this. So, that's all I have.
And then there's a Springfest budget report, which I don't think we need Madison to explain at all, but we are very grateful to the volunteers and the different hours that were put out. I know, it's all stated there for you. So Suzanne did a phenomenal job getting all of those various musicians, buskers and whatnot, and to see them in all the shops was pretty exciting. So thank you to that team. And it was all for free. So yeah,
Thank you.
donations. Which is an incredible feat.
And it is fantastic. It does add a very different element to the event itself, especially when we were doing I think the first time you did it was the Art and Wine Walk.
That was like
The-
after downtown day, but art and wine was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it just brought a different ambiance to the event, and having people see the art and listen to the music, it was, hats off. It was great.
And it brings people to downtown that normally wouldn't be there because they're actually coming to see the musicians and then they're experiencing all the different shops and restaurants and whatnot and
Yep.
hopefully other services as well, so.
And if you don't already have my card, you may get one, and whenever you want me or anybody else for a non-event for your business, please let me know. I am the most attainable person in the world. Just give me a call.
Thank you. Okay, great. So that covers your executive report, Elizabeth?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, funding requests, we have none, so we'll move into committee reports. First up, we have volunteer and event subcommittee report.
So as the liaison for the event and subcommittee, admittedly, I have not been at the last 3 meetings. There has been a lot of narrative in the community about the 4 new board members going rogue, and I have been baited into arguments in those meetings, which I have shut down. Effectively making my job as that liaison not effective. So I didn't go to the last 3. One of them, my daughter had a field trip, so that's why I wasn't there. But if this board wants to continue to have a liaison, we need to have some conversation about who that person is. I've certainly tried my best to help out as best I can. Madison, I helped you make marketing material. I handed out numerous flyers I went around to businesses and collected items for baskets for donations. I picked up chalk from DPW, I delivered that chalk. I've done a lot to try to help. And that narrative continues to be shared through our DDA email, to my neighbors of 20 years, and it's very discouraging. I'm not sure what much more I can do to help or collaborate. So I'm not sure what this board wants to do for that position, but I feel that I'm not being effective in that role as a liaison, because I'm not sure what more I can do.
Danielle, are you still under the belief that it's a necessary position?
Madison, in the meetings that I have attended, and at these meetings, when Madison comes up and she shares what has happened in those meetings, I don't have much more to share to that. It saddens me because I enjoy volunteering and I enjoy sharing, and trying to help as best I can. So that saddens me, but I don't know that I'm being as effective with this narrative out in the community.
Okay, so maybe we take a step back a little bit here. It sounds like maybe this position that was created as the board liaison was almost, you're creating this dual role that Madison was already fulfilling.
Possible.
So there was never a transition of roles and responsibilities, and I don't think there was any conversation about that when we initially proposed
No, there
a
wasn't.
liaison, that it was already, that work was already being done. So maybe there was just some confusion, and once things got rolling, it became more apparent. But if that's the case, does this board think we should, because it sounds like Danielle has no interest in taking on that role anymore, do we replace that role, or is Madison already fulfilling that need in her part-time position with the DDA?
Well, I think one of the concerns that, if I'm hearing Danielle right, I don't want to speak for you, but is a lot of, and which we've seen here in our board packet, the communications that have been sent out regarding the board is really making it difficult for the board to build relationships with people, because there's always this narrative of going rogue and doing their own thing, which is just not the case. I know that I think that's where a lot of this issue is. I think we should have a board member liaison. I think we should have a board member who's connecting with our volunteer base. I think that's important. But if there's a kind of a stopping point, that there's, like I said, these letters that are going out, the letter to Danielle's neighbor, I don't fault you for how you feel. I tried as much as I can to respond to a lot of this communication. I know I responded to Ruth, and I responded to Gail, and I responded to SEMCOG to try to bring it back in and dispel this kind of story that's out there. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I think we do have to have a connection. I mean, the board should be connected to our volunteer base. The board should be a part of the community. But if we're stopped at every front, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, and I think the intention was never to take control of volunteers. It was more relaying the information to the rest of the board as to what was discussed and what the volunteers are planning, because most of the time it was always, we didn't know until we got to the meetings, but in the meantime, there's weeks worth of work that was being done behind the scenes that we would sometimes be kept up to speed on, sometimes we weren't kept up to speed on it. So the idea behind the liaison would be no different than a subcommittee report. They come back to the board, they talk about what was discussed in the last month, what they were working on, and it just created a little more transparency and clarity for the rest of the board at that point. So just, it's almost just being present frequent at each meeting, so that everybody knows what's going on and being able to report back to the board. Does anybody have the flexibility based on when the volunteers meet to be able to take on that role? Or can we defer to Madison and say, maybe is it a bi-weekly report? Is it a report after every volunteer meeting? I don't know. That's something that the board needs to.
We have an agenda that could always get put out with her notes, could always be sent out.
Are there minutes too that come from that?
Yes.
Okay, so we
Not
could-
the same type of minutes, obviously, but no.
But a loose,
It's my notes of kind of things of who's doing what. It's not.
I mean, that would probably suffice just from an email that goes out. I mean, that eliminates the need for any involvement by the board, because I think that's what would happen. Madison's there in the role because she has a work schedule and she's there for those meetings. With the volunteer board, things come up. You can't make every meeting, and then,
But I don't think that's the concern that's brought up.
I thought the
don't-
concern was just being informed about what's being discussed.
No.
at
Why
that.
you wanted a liaison in the first place. The
Right.
goal was to kind of be informed and kept informed, and.
Absolutely.
And that may have evolved to, like I
But
said.
we were just
I-
trying to keep the communication open with the volunteers.
Yeah.
That's so important, but when we go, I mean, I know I can speak for myself and a few other board members, and we go to those volunteer meetings, I mean, we feel so unwelcomed. It's just, it's sad. That's my feelings.
Mark,
So at this, go ahead, Greg.
and I have to excuse myself in about 3 minutes. I hate to end with this, but, these feelings you're talking about, these issues we're having, there's still a lot of unresolved issues. Remember, our executive director has still got an outstanding job evaluation, performance, whatever we want to call it, that really hasn't been brought to a head. It was designed, with questions, about her job, that she wasn't really hired to do all these. I don't want to rehash all this, but, so these things are going to be there until, they get resolved. So to be surprised, you saw what happened 2 meetings ago, or whenever it was, when we had 60 people in here that were sort of upset with the direction that we were kind of going. So there shouldn't be a surprise that feeling is out there. There's still a lot of angst, unfortunately.
But there's a lot of information that people don't know that's being done behind the
And
scenes.
the communications being
And
sent
we
are concerning.
are not going to be the one bringing that out. I mean, it just, we need to find a way to work together and stop the gossip around town, because I can guarantee you, it's not coming from me, it's not coming from us.
And Greg, I think my actions speak to my motives
Yeah.
and what I have been doing and
Yeah.
the volunteer work that I've been doing. So to
And
see.
I was speaking to Mark.
I know, I'm
Yeah.
just sharing what
Yeah.
my concerns, this was my, committee report, and I'm just not sure that me being there is effective use of my time or anybody else's
I can
if,
appreciate that.
that's what we're gonna do, so.
I don't
Because
blame you one bit.
I've been to those meetings where I signed up to have a magician in front of my restaurant, and I was never given one. And I was the second one to turn in my sheet, but yet everybody else had 2 or 3 in front of their business, and I couldn't even get one. So I took it upon myself. I did my own advertising, because I get nothing shared until recently. I had to find my own magician. I have to do so I'm just gonna continue doing my own thing.
So
And it's a
Jack, to
shame.
answer your question, I know for me personally, I think Madison's report, if Madison's okay with sharing what they did and whatnot, I'm certainly still willing to help and volunteer in any ways that you guys want or need me to. Continue to pick up chalk or move furniture or whatever you need. Just reach out and I'll do that. But
Yeah, and that sounds like a fair direction to me. And I will just say this. The same way, we're all volunteers on this board, nobody on this board gets paid, and then there's the new collection of volunteers that have been doing a lot of things behind the scenes that doesn't take place at these board meetings, which is all fantastic. You know, Elizabeth has done a great job of rallying the troops, and, you know, getting those people to come out and roll up their sleeves has been fantastic. And but it's funny because there's really a disconnect between the two volunteer groups. We have a job to do on our board here, but you guys are doing things on a weekly basis as well. And I don't want it to seem as though it's not appreciated, because it absolutely is. I think the board just wants a little more clarity so that we know what's going on, and in turn, you guys are kind of seeing how the process works as well, and, you know, what our jobs are here. So you guys had a little bit of a head start. You guys have been doing this for a lot longer from that end, but we're just trying to stay up to speed on what's going on. That's really the extent of what the whole position was being created for. Not to take away from anything that you guys were doing, just to keep us informed. So that being said, if the board's okay with it, should we make a motion to dissolve the position of volunteer liaison, and that information be provided by Madison in her minutes or her notes? Would that be acceptable of this board?
I would say so. I mean, as long as medicine doesn't have to go out of her way to do extra work just to make this happen.
It's in Google Drive, you do that, right, Madison? Yeah. You do it in Google, so it could just be in the Google Drive, and anybody could look at it at any moment,
Yeah,
right?
just be shared with the board like the rest of the documents. I'll make a motion to dissolve the position of volunteer liaison, position that Danielle Lee holds, and in substitution of the position, we will be provided with a meeting minutes from the volunteer meeting by Madison.
Do you want that to be your whole motion?
I want that to be
That's
my
okay.
whole
I'll go back and watch the timestamp. No problem. Not a problem at all.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Lee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Not opposed. May I put a fine point on one comment you made prior to that regarding our appreciation for the volunteers and what they do and are doing? With the one of the reasons why we need information, would like information, is we are also volunteers on the board, and the biggest thing in my eyes that we are appointed to do is, there's a lot of money. Ultimately, at the end of the day, before it gets to village council, that money's on our shoulders. So I want to ask questions. I want to ask about $80,000 donations, $20,000 budgeted, $5,000 for winter, whatever it is, because ultimately I'm responsible for that. And I every day get people coming in to find me, of course, when I don't have the time, and ask about 2,000 here, 500 there, office supplies there, salaries here, you name it, just for examples. Just need information, okay? I want to make sure we are all accountable. So end of the day, all of this, in my eyes, comes down to the money. So a fine point to what Zach said, we appreciate. We don't want to dissolve committees. We don't want to steer people away. Unfortunately, I have also experienced some people that were specifically on this volunteer committee coming in saying they don't want to go to it anymore.
Yeah.
That's sad. There was a comment made in public comment that the numbers of showing up for these meetings have dwindled. That's sad. And the narrative that I'm hearing out there is because we're roadblocking all of this. We need all of this information. We need somebody to attend these meetings because we want to stop it. No idea where all that comes from. We just need to be accountable. And that's the reason for 99% of the questions I'm asking are because of that, because of the money. I need to be accountable. I have to have that information. So when I don't get it and I'm being asked for it, there you go. So thanks for that motion. That's fine. And Madison, thank you for doing what you're doing. It's not that we don't want you to do it. That was another narrative. I heard that tonight. Where in the world did that come from? You're doing great. Keep it up. Let's get to where we have the money to give you more time. But when we get to the budget, which we're going to look at, there's no money. We'd love to. So that's my comment about some of the narrative that's out there, some of the misinformation that's out there in the world that is just that. It's misinformation, and you guys need to understand that.
Thanks, John. Next up, we have Employment Subcommittee report. Don't believe that there is one. There's been no activity.
No, we were just still waiting on the meeting of what was agreed upon in April, but that hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Okay, so moving on, 4 Pillars Subcommittee report. I mean, as far as my subcommittee goes, the 2 I'm involved with, we've had so many meetings this month, 2 budget workshop meetings. Now, this meeting got pushed back. I mean, we haven't met. We haven't done anything. I don't know if any of the other subcommittees have, but.
No, the promotions committee, we're just waiting honestly once we have our budget approved, to start putting some of those items in place and bringing it to the board. But I agree, that's all we've got so far.
I do have a question for clarification, because this has come to me regarding these meetings, whether it be a committee that I'm involved with or any of the 4, I guess this would apply to. These are open meetings. Am I correct? Anybody's welcome.
Correct.
Okay, I've had a couple.
None of those meetings were ever posted, though.
Okay,
I wasn't
so-
aware of when they were held or anything like that. But if that's
Yeah.
something that you all want to pursue with that, then you just have to let us know so we can
Well, it doesn't
get
have to
that
be
published.
posted because there doesn't have to be, there's no action being taken, they're not.
But if they're open to the
set.
public and we don't have a way of communicating
Sure, right.
that.
It's just not, it's not a requirement is what I'm
Okay.
getting at. It's not like the regular meetings where we have to post, otherwise we can't, which is why this meeting was rescheduled in the first place.
Sure.
I just want to clarify that it's not a requirement that they be posted, but it's no different than, just it's an added bonus and it's just extra so we can keep the community informed. We have a website for that. We have, obviously, the social media posts, so all that can be incorporated. So anytime we're organizing, once we have confirmed dates and times, let's just let Elizabeth know so it can be posted on social media or at the very least on our website.
And the economic vitality you knew about was in the office.
Yes, you're right. Yep, you're right. You're right. There was a couple of them that I was aware of, but we never posted them but whatever the directions you all want to go, we can take care of that.
Great. All right, moving on. You good, John?
I'm good.
All right.
On that, if I could say, if you all, moving forward with that, if you did do like a minutes or a report or something, and then it's added to the board packet for historical reference, it's really helpful to have that in there. It avoids some of the issues with like minutes and whatnot, because minutes are taken with board action, but if there's a report that's part of the board packet, then you have it for historical reference too.
Thank you. All right, next up under unfinished business, we have DDA Director, Continued Education Opportunities. Let's start with the MDA Conference, June 2nd, 2023.
Yeah, so you've approved a continued education in the past, and I will not be seeking reimbursement for the accommodations as this is a one-day event. I'm seeking approval in the amount of an item, for this item not to exceed 300. And then the other one is the Leadership Macomb, which is a well-respected program within Macomb County. And the details are all there. I don't know if you want me to read it at all. But it is an application process. There is an application fee. And then from there are scholarship opportunities and so forth. And I've sought additional sponsorship from the Chamber of Commerce, and they are waiting to see if this is something that'll get approved or not to pursue, whether or not they would be interested in some sort of a scholarship opportunity in addition. But all the information is there, and as you know, the MDA is quite a valuable resource. Yeah, so.
So the chamber's only interested if we're interested?
Well, if it doesn't get approved to apply for the application that, they didn't pursue, yes, so.
I mean, would they be willing to pay for the application?
I don't believe so, because I work for this board, and not the chamber.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Did you do this summer workshop last year through the MBA?
You had approved it, and then my father passed away, so I was out of town for that. And then I had gone, in the fall, Madison and I attended one, and we had a scholarship for that. We had applied for through the county, and we had one other one that was a free event. So there was one last year that you paid for and one the year before that, which is a similar amount, yes.
Okay, so this first one, building relationships with downtown stakeholders, creating a healthy business mix, art, nurturing the entrepreneur pipeline, planning for streetscapes and maintaining. I mean, based on the description of what the session is going to include, it sounds like that's what we want our executive director to focus on as far as these topics are concerned. I mean, that's what we talked about seeing more of, you know, downtown stakeholders being property owners, and I think we're a member, so it'd only be $150, and you're seeking, what would the extra $150 include? Is
Well,
that
there's
for a
per
second?
diem for travel.
Okay.
And then a couple of meals, which is standard, which is what you've approved before, so.
Okay.
And you see how I grabbed on you saying somebody else might want to spend their money instead of us spending our money, and asked that question, right?
I'm sorry, what, I don't
The
understand.
reason why I asked my question about if the chamber was willing to spend their money, I'd rather spend theirs than ours, but you're saying no, so what if we split it with them?
But that's a different one, right?
That's completely different.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah, these are two different items.
This one doesn't
yeah.
require an application.
Yeah, correct.
They want to spend, they want to grant the
No, he's
application
talking
money?
about the Michigan Downtown Association
That's
workshop.
the first,
I'm sorry, I got it.
that's the first one on the list. That's why I was going in that order. So the MDA conference for June 2nd, 2023, it's $150, $300 for per diem, so not to exceed $300 for everything. And that's why I mentioned those session topics, because it sounds like what we are interested in pursuing. So I would make a motion to approve 11, should it actually be 10C?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, correct,
10.
because it's, correct, it's 10 CI.
Okay, so I would make a motion to approve item 10CI, to approve the MDA summer workshop in an amount not to exceed $300 for continued education.
I'll second it.
That's June 2nd,
Correct.
day trip, you said?
Well, we might go camping, so we might stay up there, but I'm not going to ask you to pay my
That's on you.
camping fee.
You'll be back for Monday? Monday
Yeah.
the 5th?
I would imagine so, yes. That was a second by Lee?
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah, Elizabeth, can you do a roll call, please?
Is there
Sure.
any option for discussion?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I guess my concern with this is we have so many unanswered motions right now regarding expectations, job descriptions. We're just kind of adding more motions before we've addressed open issues that we have. So I don't know that this is somewhere where I think we should be putting money into when we have open-ended questions that we still have yet to address from months ago meetings.
I definitely see your point on that, Andrea, and I think that's more of my question for the Leadership Macomb Core program. I mean, for $300 and some of the sessions that are going to be included in this workshop, to me, it seems like a benefit.
I don't think it's a bad workshop, but we don't even have a job description.
Right.
So how can we
Right.
say that this is going to answer the questions of the job description that we don't even have?
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's a
So-
fair point.
I think that we are kind of putting the cart before the horse as far as some of these conferences until we can have a understanding of what the job is going to entail. And then once we have identified what that job is and what it entails, then we can start saying, here's some great continuous education that meets that. But like I said, we're at this point, we're sitting 45 days into no job description to even reference when we're looking at these sorts of things. So that's where I have an issue with it. If we had those meetings and confirmed job descriptions, I would probably have a different approach to it. But again, yeah, it sounds like a great class. I don't know that it's beneficial right now, and we don't even know the terms of the role.
Okay.
If I could say something, I do have a job description. I don't remember there being a
Well,
vote where I don't
let's-
have a job description.
I'd rather not.
I'm just saying, I mean, I do have an
But there
actual
was
job
a meeting,
description,
a
so.
motion that still has not been completed.
To
where the
redo- to rewrite it?
board- Right,
Sure.
and so that hasn't happened, so.
Agreed,
Yeah,
I understand.
I'd like to avoid getting into that argument at this time, because it's something that will have to be discussed. So there is a motion with a second. If there's any, is there any further discussion before we do a roll call? No? All right, so at this time, Elizabeth, I'd ask you to do a roll, please.
Sure. Rose?
Yes?
Lee?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes?
Poznanski?
Yes.
Hutnick?
No.
St. Laurent?
No.
All right, motion carries.
You mean, yeah, okay, it carried? Okay, thank you.
I believe so. 1, 2, 3,
4, you had
Yep.
4. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the Leadership Macomb Core Program.
Now, something like this, I can see a little more to your point, Andrea. It's a little more in-depth, it's more time, it's costly, and it does come around. I don't know if it's once a year or if it's twice a year.
Yeah, once a year, yeah.
Once a year, so we could jump into it again. Or maybe by next month, if we have what you're talking about. When is the due date?
I'd have to look at the application. I don't have it. I had it in last month's board packet, but I don't have it this time, Megan, so I apologize for that. So I'm not quite sure. The application hasn't, yeah, I don't have an answer for you on that, sorry.
Okay, I'm just thinking that if maybe by next month we had what we needed, we could bring it up again if it was still available, if the date hadn't come yet.
And it's, just to be clear, it's 11 full days is what that program entails?
It's a 12-month program.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's once a month, and then there's various meetings surrounding that. So if you look at the last month, the board packet that was from the first, it had more information, it had more, last month, I'm sorry. It was last month because this was tabled from last month. So there's additional details inside there. I'd be happy to email that as well. But yeah, and Megan, to your point, I believe the application process just opened. I don't think it closes actually until the end of July, so there's plenty of time. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion that we table any decision on the Leadership Macomb Core Program until we've had a chance to address the employment goals and objectives.
Do you want to just table it? I mean, do you need to do a motion to table it, or just table it?
If I can do it without making a motion.
I'll just put table if you
Okay.
want.
Yeah, let's
Is that
table
okay
it.
with
Yep.
everybody? Okay. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. Moving on, we have annual sponsorships.
This is a draft that I have, we've had ready since, well, we were getting ready to present this to you all in January, and then, of course, we moved, and there were all those, so this was not something that we launched when we had intended to launch it. You'll see the background. We started working on this in late 2022. We received valuable feedback and input from several sources. We also received several Michigan DDA sponsorship programs. Some are quite extensive, others are much smaller. Lake Orion has a wonderful sponsorship program that we based some of our draft from. Progress on this program halted due to the need to relocate and many other factors that have taken our time and attention. Fundraising is an area that could help offset some of our larger annual expenses in our budget, and so we can focus on key aspects of our master plan. This is an area that I am well versed in, and many companies have reached out wanting to donate. However, board direction and vision is needed. I don't know if you all are ready to pursue anything with this or not, but it's been sitting on the back burner, and we're already in the mid of almost to mid-May, so I wanted to present it. As you can see, several people, including Extra Credit Union, had said, we want to be involved, and I said, okay, we have this draft sponsorship form, and so we had sent it out, and you see that there were those that had donated there, and one of our sponsors is here. Mitt TV had donated to the Summer Floral Program of 1,000, Extra Credit Union to Christmas, Screech Fest, and then Arbor Day, which we know we refunded. And then as the first two from Winterfest, Extra Credit Union and Youngers had made donations in there. So I have the question marks on there just because I don't know where what the direction is for those future events are. So if those events don't happen, just so you all know, at some point, that money would need to be returned unless they, I tried to get them to change their mind on what we did with some of the Arbor Day Spring Fest, and that wasn't amiable for them. But this is sort of what it looks like. It's something to look at. I don't know that I need you all to make any action on that tonight, but this is what, Madison did a really great job in putting this program together. We know there's some graphic-wise, it can be spiced up a little bit, but this was the draft that we wanted to get up. We've had several larger companies that would like to donate on an annual basis, and this is where we were heading. But just I wanted to present that to you.
I've got a quick question.
Sure.
So the annual sponsors for a flat amount of $5,000. How many events were you under the notion that would cover? Because I know it's all events, but if there's, let's say, even on a high end, 5 events a year, if you sponsored that individually, you're not getting that much more. It would cost you $25 if you did each event at $500. What more are you getting for that extra $2,500 just to have it covered? I know it says it here, but really the only big difference is on-site downtown sponsorship signage. I feel like we kind of have to fine-tune.
Oh, absolutely.
the
I'm not
specifics
looking
of
for
this.
any approval on
Okay.
anything here. This was only for your own, just for your eyes, just to see it, to see kind of where we were headed with it. And if one of your pillars wants to do something with this or not, that's all fine. So this is just, I didn't want a piece of material that we had put out. I mean,
Right.
as you know,
For sure.
fundraising is one of my strong suits, one of our strong suits, and we've had people coming to us wanting to do it, and without having some sort of an approved program in place, we could end up with some of the situations that, Andrea, to your credit, have brought up, that there's concerns that arise when you don't have a donation policy, when you don't have a
Yeah.
sponsorship policy, those types of things. This is just sort of the infant stage of this, and
Okay.
so I just wanted to present that for you all to look at.
Thank you. So, I mean, my thought process would be figure out which one of the subcommittees this works with to fine tune it, bring Elizabeth into that conversation to review this. What are people's expectations of sponsorships thus far? Who do we currently have that we're working with for sponsorships beyond the in-kind donations? We're looking to add to the monetary donations. How do we structure this in a way that makes sense for the DDA as well as the sponsors, so it's a successful relationship, so that they want to do it again? That would be my recommendation for looking at these annual sponsorships. When would you want this ideally to go out?
Honestly, getting this in committee and really just hashing out the details, kind of looking at maybe the past, what have we brought in from donations in the last 18 months, and looking where do those donors maybe want to see this moving forward. Honestly, this would be a good thing to potentially launch in the fall or early winter, so that people are ready. Because people say when they're looking at their annual budgets, and Ruth might be able to speak to this better than I, they want to start earmarking those funds by, November, December timeframe, so they know what they're sponsoring, where they're spending those donor monies for the following calendar year.
So they can get it on their taxes.
Right. But would we miss out on Vintage Fest sponsorship if we don't get this out? That's kind of one of the
Because you'd have
big.
that the year before.
So we're just it's gonna be, okay, I see what you're saying.
You could create something that what we've already done with sponsorships is a version of this, looking for something like that, yeah.
I like that
So.
timeline then.
What committee would you suggest, or pillar? What is it thought?
Probably promotion.
I was gonna say promotion.
Promotion or organization.
Could be organizational too. Let me look at that, and I'll send out an email to make a recommendation, and if
Yeah.
there's any feedback at that point, we can discuss further. That way that subcommittee can put it on their radar.
So you don't have any action to report on this? This is
No.
just for information?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
perfect. So I don't know if you guys like the direction that is or anything like that, and it doesn't matter, no other comments are needed, but just so you know that's there.
Okay.
And it can
Oh,
be.
I think it's a great jumping off point, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on, unfinished business, downtown events. First up, we have sidewalk sales and garage sale weekend.
Yeah.
Madison?
So this is now 10C, just for your board packet. It's actually 10C, not 10E,
Gotcha.
so you know.
Yeah, so mainly this whole 10C section is, I wanted to go through each of the upcoming events and kind of just get a general board idea from what the different pillars want, what this board wants to see. Specifically with the sidewalk sales and garage sale weekend, we were looking at the whole Rummage Fest type of idea, where we are right now and working with Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec has done a wonderful job with the garage sale weekend and sidewalk sales. We're gonna lean on them more than us because they reinvent the wheel. And help in that aspect with encouraging businesses to do more just sidewalk sales during that same time and kind of combine those events. But specifically, I just want some feedback for Vintage Fest and the concert series. So I don't have something specific I'm looking for. I just wanted to put the question out there.
Let me, okay.
I'm sorry, no, go ahead.
I just want to touch on the Rummage Fest really quick. I think we may be causing some confusion by adding another fest to the mix here. I think, you know, it's always been known as sidewalk sales in the downtown. Parks and Rec has already done a really good job of promoting their garage sale weekend. I think if we add another layer to that and start calling something Rummage Fest, especially in its first year, there's gonna be an expectation of more that we have to put on as the DDA, and I think part of the idea behind combining the sidewalk sales with garage sale weekend was to capitalize on the traffic that's already coming through town at no cost to the DDA board. So to my thought process would be work with Parks and Rec is to get a poster that combines sidewalk sales and garage sales, and send an email out to the CBD to just say, we're planning on sidewalk sales for this date. We encourage all the vendors to roll their wares out onto the sidewalk during these dates and times. That way it doesn't, I think we would get the best results that way. That's just my.
Yeah, and that's why we changed it actually
Right.
on the agenda. We took the
okay.
Rummage Fest off of there. It just
Okay,
wasn't
sorry.
corrected in your board packet because we were trying to not reprint that whole thing. But yeah, we agree with you on that. We pivoted. That's what part of the reason why that changed. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, one thing that we did work on Parks and Rec with a little bit was they're working on an interactive map now.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be a cool thing to see. They're working on a little bit of that, but
I think for concerts, we've already approved the $3,000 budget. So what more, what are you looking for from us for that?
I guess just vision. Because I know that these new pillars have been made with different types of promotions and design. I want to see, I know it's not like a solid thing because you guys haven't met in a couple of weeks because of all the crazy meetings. I don't know, just like a little bit of your vision.
I think we can leave that up to Madison.
Yeah, I mean, we've
and-
approved it. There was, I think, 6 or 7? How many concerts?
It's an 8-week.
8 weeks,
Yeah.
okay. So, yeah, I would think just proceed with it. Have we picked like the date and the dates? Is it Wednesdays?
Yeah, it's Wednesdays.
Okay, perfect.
July 12th through August 30th, I believe, is the last
Yeah.
Wednesday of August.
Yeah, and you have the budget to work with, so.
You know what would be really cool, this is a little off topic, but if we could record that music and somehow find a way to work that into the idea of bringing the downtown speakers back and having, maybe you could play some of that throughout the town too, on those off days where, you know, it's like this was recorded with the date, and that way
That'd be cool.
there's a historical element to it as well, like pull up this was from, I mean, it sounds silly now, but like 20 years
Yeah.
down the road, it would be cool to
That'd be
hear
cool.
what was being played in 2023, the first year.
I've had some good
Concerts
phone
took
calls
place.
with the speaker system companies, so we can get into
Great.
that later. And then as far as Vintage Fest, I believe at the last meeting, you were gonna put together a plan to bring to the board for what you thought would be appropriate for food trucks. So do you have that?
So I have been conducting research. I've been observing different types of communities and what different food trucks have come in and out. I do not have something to present right now. I've had some family things come up that have affected that a little bit. But I am working on it. I do have a working little thing, but I didn't want to present something that was incomplete.
Sure.
Sure.
I just think we will need to have it by June's meeting, so we can
Yeah.
have a policy, because then Vintage Fest is right around the
Absolutely.
corner. So for us to be able to have a policy in place, we'll have to have something to approve.
Do you need any further clarification?
I just
Madison?
wanted to put it out there,
Yeah.
get a little bit of feedback if there was anything, any burning questions.
No, it was I mean,
So-
last year's event was fantastic, nothing but rave reviews, so, it's, I think if we fine tune that food truck issue, we should eliminate a lot of, combativeness, I guess, so, great job.
I would make a comment with the concert series. I mean, it's understandable, not each band is going to be charged the same amount. Some of them might even donate. So it's understandable that will have to be your call on dividing that kind of
Oh, yeah.
throughout that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've been working on a estimated budget for that. That's internal. But yeah, all that's flexible, so we're good.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. All right.
Thanks, Madison.
Yep. Just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
All right, next up, under new business, we have a FOIA policy. This is a draft that I believe Madison created, correct? Did you work on? Yes. Okay, so we don't really have a FOIA request form. The village does. They have it where it's very easy to fill out. We have received quite a few in the last month or so, and there's no clarification as to what information is required. It creates a lot of questions back and forth. We need something very clear-cut, just like the village adopts, that all the information of the request is presented, and what is expected of the board members when they receive those FOIA requests. So this was something that we wanted to adopt to make it easier for not just board members to respond to, but for the public to fill out as well. So this is presented here in the board, or in the packet, and we would just be looking for a motion to approve an official FOIA request form.
So Zach, with this actually is the same as the one that the village uses. It was just adopted with our information on it, and then, of course, we put at the bottom, and these are still, in draft form, and the MDA does not have one, don't have a template, so that's what this template was made.
It's from the village of Romeo.
Correct, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
And this is
in
pretty
Madison.
much the state standard here.
Gotcha. So,
And, I mean, the DDA, this isn't the first time. The DDA has been FOIA'd in years past. So this should have been done. So
Yep.
it's good to see that this is getting done now. So good step in the right direction.
So just to be clear, when it says it drafted ours from existing request form, this is the form, we just changed the logo at the top, so we didn't change anything from the village one.
Right.
Okay.
And the last thing on the quotations on the second page where it says created by Romeo DDA, like that says something, it said something like,
Right.
the MML, Michigan Municipal League, obviously
Okay.
we aren't part of that, so we took that part off.
Right, got it.
Well, and the last time this board was FOIA'd, that's when we created the court. At that point, we hadn't addressed who the coordinator was.
right.
And that's when we
Lisa took on that
made the
role.
coordinator, yes, the executive director, so.
I'll make a motion to adopt this, but I do have maybe I should ask my question first. When you're saying for the board members to answer, just so I understand, the FOIAs are still being directed to the executive director,
Yes, and then.
and then they're
Yes,
filtered down like they have been.
Correct.
I'm sorry, they're directed to the FOIA coordinator.
FOIA, which in this time is our executive director.
Whether it's, if it's DDA,
Right, because you
if it's
can't
village,
FOIA,
if it's somebody else.
you can't FOIA a board member, you FOIA the board. And then that's where your director or the person in charge then goes, okay, I think this might apply to these people
Yeah.
within the organization, and it gets done that.
And there's also an
filtered.
expectation of potential costs that, you
Yeah.
know, there's costs that are associated with making the FOIA request, which is the responsibility of the person making the request.
Yeah.
And
I
that part
think-
hasn't been done yet. There's no expense thing. This is just the basic form.
I think it's good, because I know that in the past month or so, we've all been receiving direct, and I've been trying to refer those people back to Elizabeth. But I think it'll help with having a form, maybe it can be on our website even, kind of like how the villages.
Sure.
Something like that. So anyway, I will make a motion to adopt the FOIA policy.
So,
Sorry.
sorry, a question. So once this is
What-
filled out, where does it go?
1 second, we've got, you made the motion.
Do you want to do the recommended motion
I'll
that's
take
on
that.
there? Would that be, would you
Yep.
want to state that? Would that be okay?
I have to find it here, but.
So we'll have
So that's
discussion
your budget,
after
this one?
there's a second on the floor, because Andrea made a motion.
Okay, so I'm making a motion to approve the DDA FOIA request for public records as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by St. Laurent. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Rose. Now, Marty, would be the time for discussion.
Okay, so once this is filled out, where does it go?
The person filling this out would give it to our FOIA coordinator. The FOIA coordinator would then take this and send it to the subject of the request. So if there's information that's being requested of you, the FOIA coordinator is going to send that to you, and then you are to respond to the FOIA coordinator so that the FOIA coordinator can provide said information to the person making this
Okay.
request.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these all have to go to the Attorney General before?
I think that's just for the state legislature.
Is
I-
it?
I don't, Megan, I don't know if you could clarify that?
Our coordinator addresses them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's for the municipality itself. I think that's if you're FOIA, if you're requesting something of the governor or somebody who's the attorney general, that's when that would go that route, as far as I understand it.
So anybody can do these. So in 1 week, we received 3 of them from 3 different people.
That is unfortunately the case. I mean, the public has a right to information, and as board members, we are subject to
Right.
provide. the
Well, and-
information
But
that we
not
request.
from
If
our
they're-
personal,
The only thing I'll clarify is, no, we didn't have this policy if
Mm-hmm.
we adopt it now. So I don't know what you've been getting from anyone.
Oh, I've been getting
Now they will be coming
emails.
directly from our FOIA coordinator.
Well, this form, yes, but it was still, the information, we were basically receiving this information. And then the FOIA coordinator was making the same request. This just makes it a clear-cut form, and it makes it much easier than trying to decipher an email and what people are requesting, the dates, the times, what's the relevance of this, and what does it pertain to? So it's basically making it so that you don't have to look through this email, because there were questions. It's like, this isn't really relevant. We need more information, so.
Yeah, it's a document. You request documentation. You don't ask an open-ended question that you have to create a document to hand over. It's a document request. And if you're receiving multiple in a week, if there's the same thing being asked for multiple times, the director would already have it to turn over, because if it's already been turned over once, they would still retain that
Yeah.
and just
It-
make
the
a copy
information
and send
doesn't
it back.
change.
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
so,
And it's not a Q&A. It's not an opportunity where you are required to answer questions.
You don't have to create a document.
right. So this would go to Elizabeth, but she's the one requesting the FOIA?
No, she's requesting the FOIA of board members because she's the FOIA coordinator. She's not asking for,
I'm the middleman.
Yeah, she's not the person
I mean, she
who's-
could technically.
She could if she
Fill one
wanted
out.
to, but when
Yes,
you
she
get
could
the,
fill
when
this
you
out.
get the emails from Elizabeth, it's because somebody else is requesting the information. Elizabeth is not the one requesting that information of you. She's requesting it on behalf of the public who made the FOIA request, if that makes sense.
Right. But how can they request information off, like my private phone, private emails?
If you're discussing DDA business or
Right.
things that are relevant to decisions that are made on this board, you're subject to provide that information, because I would,
Because it's a public body,
I
correct?
would recommend to every single person who serves on this board, because we are not issued government cell phones. If I were anybody sitting on this board, I would only conduct business via email.
Well,
I
a
would
business
not-
isn't
it's
just a text message chat. It has to be literal business document. There are classes. I'll look them up for us. There are classes that we can take so we will be informed and not have to wonder.
That
But
would be
I think
helpful.
it's important to, just to piggyback on what Zach said, it's, sometimes we get emails of lists of just questions and opinions and why are you doing this or why do you think this? Those are not FOIA items. It's actually a document.
Correct.
So we have a motion by St. Lawrence. John, did you second? Second by Rose. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have the 2023-2024 budget presentation. This should be pretty straightforward. We discussed this over the course of 2 workshop meetings. I believe everything that is being presented is exactly what we discussed.
I do apologize. I have to step out for 10, 15 minutes to get to the bus stop. I will be
Okay.
back, so I do apologize. Oh, never mind, he's here.
All right.
I was gonna
so
say,
we're
I
good.
apologize for texting, but I'm coordinating pickup of
That's
my
what I
daughter,
did.
so.
That's what happens in these mid-afternoon meetings.
Otherwise, she's gonna be at school for a while.
Okay.
So Zach, there is a letter from Plant Moran explaining, and we did have the conversation. She and I and Zach met just to go over everything that you all had decided in the second budget workshop. So it is all in accordance with what came out of the second workshop, the end of the second workshop.
Are we discussing right now?
Yeah, sure.
So if I can start with a comment and semi-related to my, my mood earlier. Misinformation, okay? I've been given some misinformation in my board packet. I received some of this information from the street before I even received my board packet, and I just want to clarify for everybody. There's statements of total employee expenses reduced. I'm sorry, but that's just not true. There's been no, and I haven't heard anybody even insinuating reducing employee expenses. No additional employee expenses, absolutely, okay? It's a different statement in my eyes than employee expenses reduced. I just, going through my board packet, I'm like, wow, now I understand where some of these people coming into me are coming from. So that was number one issue. And then also, same comment, public donations reduced. Unless I'm missing something, there's been no reductions. There was actually a very, very clear budget. It was given to me as a recommendation, and those 2 particular line items, there was no reductions. So unless maybe somebody else on the board can clarify what I'm missing, those 2 points I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, you're taking I see your point, John, because you're taking a budget, a preliminary budget that was presented to us that the board did not discuss, and now saying that we're changing numbers based on what we finalized at the last budget meeting, and that's simply not the case. We landed on a budget, and these are what the numbers
Yeah,
are. It's-
and again, then I'll be quiet. I'm getting from the street these reductions, and that there was a budget presented, and the board went and slashed. Okay, not true. Okay? We were presented total numbers, and actually I'll credit Zach with actually putting together what the true total numbers would end up being. With those numbers, we all had some input as to how would we like to use all of our monies. And that's what's in front of me. I mean, the total budget matches what the true total budget is, and I guess that's all I have to say, is I just want to make sure that unless I'm missing something, there's been no reductions, as it was stated.
Thanks for clarifying,
Yeah.
John. Okay, so with that being said, do we have a motion to approve the proposed budget at the category level as detailed on the attached schedule in the amount of $221,550? I will make a motion to approve the proposed budget at the category level as detailed on the attached schedule in the amount of $221,550. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Lee. Elizabeth, can you please do a roll call
Any discussion?
if anybody wants?
Total budget, as you just mentioned, $221,550, if I said that correctly. I'm talking because of what I keep getting inundated with from the streets. Employee expenses out of this figure just mentioned. Please correct me, somebody, if I am wrong. $70,354.
No, that's the amended budget from this year. So the requested budget is the last line.
Okay.
It's 70 straight.
$70,000.
And that includes that includes Plant Moran. So that's, that as the accountant is in there
It
too.
includes, it's employee expenses, which we can certainly, for anybody's benefit, list exactly what that means. That does not mean that is a salary, okay? But it's what the DDA is spending on employee expenses. Without taking out a calculator, just so we're all clear,
It's a third of the budget.
30%, a third of the DDA budget for employee expenses, okay? Not a huge DDA budget, but we're doing everything we can, okay? Would we like that to be larger? I would love that to be larger, okay? I'd love 2 Madisons. It's got to add up.
And at the end of the day too, John, another third is strictly downtown decorations. So that puts you at 140. 70 and 70. So I mean, right there, there's 2/3 of your budget.
Okay, so that's the budget we are working with. I would just, make sure everybody's clear about that. And it's not necessarily some of the other numbers that I've been given. From nobody in here, from outside sources. So, thank you. I've had the discussion that I wanted to make sure I had.
Okay. Elizabeth, can you do a roll?
Sure. Lee?
I'm sorry, did you say Lee?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Hayes?
Yes?
Rose?
Yes?
Poznanski?
Yes.
Hutnick?
Yes.
St. Laurent?
Yes.
And I will get this to you, Megan, by tomorrow at noon, right? Can I have a couple extra hours?
I'll be working on it till Thursday.
I'm sorry?
I'll be working on it till Thursday.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
cool.
Great. Okay, next up, line item C, DDA, use of professional services. This goes to my further point, we need to update our bylaws. There's not a lot of clarity. We talk best practices, we talk specifics. In my 8 years on the board, I don't know that we had to contact DDA attorneys until
The last FOIA.
what was it?
The last FOIA.
Gosh, I don't even know when that was. But recently, the
3 or 4 it was a
lease,
while.
we've had to, okay. So we've had, previously it was the chair and the vice chair who were reaching out to the attorneys. So I guess you could call that our quote-unquote best practices, but there's nothing clearly that defines who can and cannot reach out to the attorneys. We did have a situation where one of the board members reached out to our attorneys without board direction. I instructed the attorneys at that time that any engagement should come from the chair or the vice chair, because that's where our practices have been in the past. No different than when we're talking about, accounting services. You don't want every single board member having access to the accountants, because you're gonna end up with an astronomical bill. The job of the chair and the vice chair are to collect that information and provide it to the board when needed. I think we need to put something in writing, though, to make sure that that is in our bylaws that states that, because going back, I could not find that.
And at the council level, we have it in our rules of procedure. So even though we do have our attorney on retainer to a certain point, we still have it in our bylaws of who can contact, because then you're contacted all the time. So general practice for council is president, clerk, treasurer, pro tem. I think that's it.
And technically, Megan, this board is supposed to default to your rules of procedure. However, it doesn't say the chair is the equivalent to the president, or that the clerk is the equivalent of the executive director. So it's really, we just need to have something in writing.
Yeah, I would say as your big sister, that you could look at ours as an example, yes.
So I would, at this point, there is a bill for $445.50 that was incurred by the DDA from a board member contacting our legal. I don't think it's appropriate for us to ask for reimbursement, because we don't have those things in place. But I would ask the board members to refrain from contacting legal until we have something updated in our bylaws that legal, accounting, any sort of professional services that the DDA employs, I would ask that nobody makes contact with those contracted services until we're able to update our bylaws and have something in writing.
Well, and I would get that to your attorneys too, so that they know not to be answering anyone who calls.
Well, and they do.
Okay.
They're because of our best practices, they are aware of that now.
Okay.
But that didn't negate the work that was already done on their
Right.
behalf.
Correct.
So this is more for informational purposes and my ask from this board moving forward.
Why do they still have Judy Sprout?
I know, well, that's how long it's been. It hasn't.
Yeah, I
been
asked them
updated
to
in
correct
quite
that,
some
and they haven't done it yet, so.
So that's in your packet, now.
You want to make a board resolution.
For,
It says that, what you're trying to say to the board members.
Well, we need to have our rules of procedure, right?
Clear on what you're saying.
Yeah, motion, resolution.
And we would do that, wouldn't you do that motion when you're actually changing? Otherwise, you're amending your bylaws outside of amending your bylaws.
Well, can't we have rules of procedure like the village?
So,
Until you get it resolved in your bylaw.
I'm just saying, if somebody would like to make a motion, they're more than welcome to do so at this time. I guess I would need some help on the wording of that, because I don't know exactly what we're implementing.
Since I write them, I mean, it would just basically be a motion for all professional services to be directed by the chair or co-chair.
But you work with the the executive director works with the accounting services, so does this have to be a separate motion?
I mean, I think you've made it pretty, from my perspective, you made it pretty clear. I think within the next month or so, you all will come up with a way to rewrite your bylaws and include.
That was kind of my thought process behind making the statement at the meeting, so if that's.
Yeah, and members are respectful.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can move on from this topic. Next up, we have discussion.
Can I ask who's going to work on that? Is there a pillar who's going to
The
specifically?
for the bylaws, it's probably organizational.
Okay, I just want to make sure it gets
yeah.
into the right hands and it gets
Yep.
there's a focus.
Good idea. Next up, discussion, village tree trimming bill, per the request of the village. This was brought to my attention. It looks like there was some work done. Oh, I got it right here.
So if I can.
Yeah, go ahead,
Can I take
Megan.
it?
I'll let you have the floor
So
on
I
that.
asked Zach, this is something that was done before my time, as I'm coming in, and before I take it to my board, because this isn't something that we can just approve at mine and Catherine's level, this $8,000, I wanted to bring it to you, ask your thoughts on it. If there would be a possible cost share in it, I'm not saying that it is wholly on you. There was some conversation back and forth in emails that you could read it one way and go one way, you could read it and go another way. Possibly that the president put you guys on, the past president put it on your plate for you when you never really accepted it. So here we are with $8,000, and we need to move into this season of tree trimming, and this contractor needs his bill paid before he's gonna come do anything for us. So with that in mind, I brought it to you because I imagine my council will go, well, have you asked them? So I'm coming to you first, asking with this amount.
And all the work was done in the CBD.
For that
this
bill.
amount, for that $8,000. We never have, however, this board never had an opportunity to approve the work, never had an opportunity to bid the work out.
Right. It was also outside of the scope of the work that council had approved, because we had
Correct.
already paid and approved our 40 grand that, for the village to pay. So this was kind of like hanging out there.
Who did approve it then?
Christine.
Yeah, former President Malzahn, who was on the DDA board, but it would be, Megan doesn't have unilateral authority to approve things on our behalf. Just because she sits on the DDA board, we still have a process in place. I think what this boils down to is, the work was done in the CBD. Is it something that, does this board feel that we should pay for the bill? Do we feel that we shouldn't pay for the bill? Or is there a compromise where maybe we pay for half of the bill and say,
Right.
in good,
And I did want to bring up, the village has also, there was an expenditure for the copy machine while the DDA was in our office that the village has also picked up in the amount of $2,969.53. So we've picked up that expense as the village. It was our copy machine in our building, so under our contract, we fulfilled our obligation there.
but for clarity, we were told we could use it at no expense to.
Nah,
the
my
DDA.
lawyer would argue that at least differently. So I just want to say, though, we have paid costs.
Okay.
For the DDA also in good faith. And so we're just asking that maybe we could cost share this.
So, I just want to get stuff done and move forward, and I don't want to go tit for tat and all of this, but, it opens up the door to so many things, because there's this whole rubbish millage situation, which is already in the midst of going back and forth of what is the DDA and the DDA businesses paying for that might be used for village residential rubbish pickup, for example. I just want to make sure that we know as we go and approve these things or don't approve these things, we're setting precedents for a number of different topics along these lines. Copier use, tree trimming, rubbish pickup, just so we're all aware. Whatever we decide.
And whichever way it is, you do decide, that is perfectly fine.
And
That's acceptable. We need to know what to bring to council
Yep.
so that we know what to do.
And I agree with whatever the majority decides as well. Just wanted to make sure that, unfortunately, the way this works is one thing leads to another, so.
And I would say in our budget, we've set aside revenue sharing $30,000.
That would be next, that wouldn't take place until.
Right,
This would
but,
still be
but
on.
our current one, and still in the vein of wanting to work with the village on different projects, and the DDA being responsible for some of that beautification and whatnot, I would say that tree trimming is part of that within the CBD. And
What's
maybe,
left in that item, that line item?
I don't know.
There isn't any because it was the crosswalk project, so
So we'd have to pull it from somewhere else in the budget.
If you want
Correct.
me for full context to this, because I was involved in this, I'd be happy to put together if you're interested in that.
I think at this point, we just need to decide if we want to spend
Yeah.
the 8,000 or portion of it, or is that what we're looking to do right now?
Yeah, the board's not obligated to pay anything, and it's our decision, essentially. You know, we've made it very clear that we want to work with the village, we want the village to partner with us on projects that we want to pursue.
Right,
I
and
think
if-
this is an unfortunate situation that got put on everybody's lap, and nobody was expecting an additional bill at the end of the day, but
And if the decision is there is nothing, there is not you saying that you don't want to work with
Sure.
us. Please don't misunderstand. But I do feel I needed to do due diligence in at least asking, and I would think my council would expect me to at least propose. Even if it's $1,000, whatever you feel you have to work with or don't, that is your call.
I was just gonna make a motion, we offer $2,000 to the village to cover the invoice left from last year's tree
Last
trimming?
fall.
Last fall's tree trimming.
And what was that one for?
It's a total of 8.
Right. And then how much was spent in the office for the,
Just under $3,000.
But that's already been, are you asking?
No, we already paid,
Yeah,
we
that
already
was
paid that.
paid that.
No, we already paid.
Contact.
was included in the lease, though.
Yeah, and we'll let the lawyers argue that one out again.
Okay, so you have a motion?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, was there a motion?
yeah, there was a motion
Yeah.
made by Rose to contribute $2,000 towards the bill from Able Tree Experts, leaving a balance of $6,000 that the village would be responsible for. And that was seconded by St. Laurent. And I'll ask you to do a roll.
Rose?
Yes.
St. Laurent?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes?
Poznanski?
I don't know if it would be appropriate to, my committee benefits. I don't personally
abstain.
benefit.
Are you abstaining?
I would abstain yeah.
Putney?
no.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you. I will take it to
Sorry,
council
I
for the
forgot that
remainder.
was on.
Okay, next up, correspondence, MDA volunteers, sponsors, and donors. I had asked for some of the information to be provided based on public statements made that there were sponsors and volunteers pulling out of their relationship with the DDA. And I thought it was very important that we address that if there were legitimate concerns, and that this board should be made aware of it, so we can pivot if need be. These were things that were said in public. Elizabeth did put together some of the correspondence. I will say, I don't know the relevance for all of the statements that are included in here, so I would ask that the board solely focus on correspondence that is related to volunteers and sponsors specifically. And I just want to get clarification. There was, as far as sponsors that have pulled out, Extra Credit Union, they asked for a refund because the event that they were scheduled to host was no longer taking place in the CBD, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's
And
the
they're,
spon-
yes, but they're questioning further ones depending on, where things go, yes.
Okay,
And
and
if I
what's,
could-
Where things go where? What do you mean?
The correspondence is all in there. I mean, if you all want to read
If
that
I
out
could really
loud,
quick
you
to
can.
that donation, if it was for Arbor Day, they did contact our board. And the board decided at the last minute, how everything was coming together, that they just didn't have the opportunity to accept it and fulfill
Sure.
something for them. So they did say, though, definitely in the future, please get to us.
okay, and then what email is specifically stating their concern about ongoing events?
I can find that for you.
Because I mean, the one thing I noted, they did mention in one of the emails that there was an expectation that, you know, they weren't aware that the closure of the alley was a temporary
Yeah.
situation, but it was always a
That was never,
temporary-
yeah, and that was
Okay.
never communicated to them. I believe,
Because if that is their concern, then it's more of a misunderstanding than anything that this
Sure.
board is doing that's damaging to the sponsorship relationship. Because we don't want to alienate sponsors.
course.
We don't want to get in a situation where we've got volunteers heading for the hills. But we need to be aware of the information, and so we can take action accordingly. And
yeah, so the last email that was included from them, they're just reiterating, because they made this donation back in January for the full year. And when they put that in there, this is where they're, so if you know, depending on how you all decide to do the rest of the events for the year, they're saying this is where they've allocated. So for example, with Vintage Fest, they already had something scheduled that weekend. That's why they decided not to sponsor it, because they actually bring a tent, or they actually have a mobile vehicle that they like to bring and put on site. In fact, they wanted to do it last year for Peach Fest, but I'm like, well, we don't do Peach Fest, and we don't have the site to do that and whatnot. So that's how they base their, much like I was talking about sponsorships before, about how people decide, or companies decide where to put their sponsorship money. They like to plan it for the year out. So that's where that one's at.
okay.
So one of the things, Zach, that I was just concerned about, and I think I had brought up, was the messages and the communication that the DDA is putting out there. That is, I think, part of what's stirring some of these responses. We didn't get access to that in here, but I did receive some. But when emails are sent out from the DDA that is talking about members going rogue, and what are you gonna do, and are you gonna let these people do this? I think that's stirring that pot of negativity. It's stirring that pot of, no thanks, I don't wanna be a part of this. And I think that that's a big concern for me, is we're receiving these communications, but what instigated these communications? And what I've seen that's stirred these up is I think really inappropriate. And, you know, I had to send an email to SEMCOG because they received a horrifying letter regarding the board. And things that weren't true, things like saying, you know, people are going rogue. That's what we're sending to SEMCOG. That's what we're sending to Dana Walker. That's very concerning to me.
For those that don't know, SEMCOG is the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, in case you just don't know.
Who have
what
received an
SEMCOG is.
entire communication about, with a negative of the board. So that's very concerning to me that we're putting that out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's kind of like a situation, you don't want to air your dirty laundry, right? I
Well,
mean,
and if you're going to, be honest about what it is.
Be honest.
Well, and, you know, we need to appear as a united front. And I don't think, I'm, you know, I think this could be said of all of us at times. We do need to try to be more supportive at times. And, you know, I agree with you. Some of the tone and the content of some of the correspondence, it doesn't paint the board in a good light. And individual frustrations should not be a measure of this board as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all kind of agree on that. Listen, we got off to a rocky start. I mean, it's
still rocky, because
It's
these
still-
things
it's
are
still-
still going out.
it's still rocky,
These were
yeah.
sent out on April 24th and 25th. This isn't, you know, this is current. This is real time.
Is there anything thing specifically you want to address with Elizabeth?
Well, I mean, yeah, why are these letters being sent out? I mean, the letter to SEMCOG was awful.
So if this
Absolutely.
is in regard to any type of an employee evaluation, I would ask to go into closed session.
not.
Otherwise, we can move on.
It's not.
Well, we are addressing.
Discussing the
Sure.
letter you sent publicly to SEMCOG.
I didn't see that. Was it done as an individual, or was our logo on it?
It was from the
From our
DDA
email.
email.
It was sent by me, reaching out, yes. And so
And that was
I've received
for-
correspondence from Dana Walker from the MDA and responses from other people, so.
But the email that you sent, I don't know if you have it there, but it said that the board members are going rogue. It said that Zach said that he's resigning because of the 4 board members. I don't remember you stating that, Zach.
No, I didn't
mean,
say,
I-
it doesn't
That's
say,
what
it doesn't
yes, it
say
does.
that I'm,
Yes, it
okay.
does.
So I'm gonna choose
Yeah,
to,
can
I'm gonna, yeah, go for it.
Okay, can we all just take a breath, though?
Hmm?
Take a breath.
I am reaching out, this is not the one.
Are you gonna read, you're gonna read it in its entirety from the start?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yep, let me go ahead and pull it up, though, because this is, I don't know if this is the correct one, but there's another one as well. Let's see.
There was only one that was sent to
Let me
SEMCOG,
go
that
ahead and pull it
included
up, because I have
SEMCOG.
my response to them as well.
Is this, are you referencing something that is in this board packet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which one did I give her? Yeah, this is the right one. I made a copy of it, that's why mine's this color.
Maybe that's what it is.
I sent it to my attorney.
I don't want, are you, okay, are we talking anything that are legal matters, Marty? I just heard you
No.
mention attorney, so I'm.
No.
I'm not.
No,
But if, yeah, Marty, if you can, I can read that letter.
You want it,
And then I
Beth?
can read you my response to SEMCOG that I had to send.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, you know,
Hold on, I wanted-
about how far back are you all going?
This
I'm
is
just
sent
looking in the packet is what I'm
On
wondering.
April 16th. It says, "All, I'm reaching out to you to see if you can assist in this matter. I'm including the Orion Township Supervisor, Chris Barnett, as he represents SEMCOG. On our agenda of the Village Council meeting on April 17th, item 10C, discussion of DDA Board responsibilities being given to Planning Commission. As you are aware of any DDA in Michigan who has successfully transferred the responsibility of the DDA Board to another board. If so, was it temporary, permanent? What was the circumstance surrounding it? I have attached a link to the board packet where the supporting documents are included. Therein contained is a TIF fact sheet of the Michigan Municipal League and another document explaining the creation of a DDA. See pages 7 through 11. As you may be aware, there is quite some controversy happening here in the small town of Romeo. I find myself right in the middle of it. 4 new board members appointed 1/23/23 have gone rogue. Another has resigned, and the board chair will be resigning soon due to the actions of the 4 previously mentioned. There is a public and business outcry for their resignation and removal from their seats. I'm concerned about the upcoming budget and how resources will be used, my position, my staff member's position, the assets of the DDA being abused and manipulated for their own personal or their business gain. This does not even begin to address the unfair evaluation process that was implemented by some of the same 4 new board members as the last DDA board meeting on April 3rd. Dana Walker of the MDA was in attendance and was one of the 24 residents, business owners, and interested parties that spoke during the public comment. It's estimated that 100 to 150 people were in attendance. This meeting lasted 3 hours and 48 minutes. I choose to have my evaluation in an open session. It would appear to be an attempt to repeat history from 2011. Wow, that's a lot of information. I know, especially on a Sunday night, any assistance in this matter would be greatly appreciated. So what I take exception with is the 4 board members that you've gone to SEMCOG and said have gone rogue. You've said that staff members' position, the assets of the DDA are being abused and manipulated for their own personal or their business gain. What is that in regards to? Why would you say that?
I'm not going to address that right now.
Okay. So this is the issue that we have, Zach. This is what's being put out from our executive director regarding our board members.
That was sent, for clarity, you said it was sent on the 27th, it was sent on
Sent on
the
the
16th of April, yeah.
So when there's statements being made that people are abusing and manipulating funds, I have a problem with that. Everything we do is public. every decision is made is here. We've been FOIA'd every which way, and these sorts of statements to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members of SEMCOG.
No, it was sent to
Is-
one member of SEMCOG. My email was sent to Chris Barnett, Amanda at the county, Vicky at the county,
Nicole- well, there's
JP at the
several with
county,
Nicole
and Dana
Gatco.
Walker.
Okay,
Yep,
so
there were
6
3.
government members that you sent this inflammatory, slanderous letter
5.
to.
5. Letter of concern. So to address that, I'll
it's not
I'll answer
accurate
this for you,
information.
Andrea. I'll answer this for you. At the time this letter was written, I became aware that a brand-new board member was contacting the DDA attorney in regard to employment information. On numerous occasions, I was trying to meet with you and Zach, and there was one date that was finally presented. There were so
No,
many.
that's not true, though.
So
We've
would you
already
like?
addressed this. There was
would you-
3 dates presented.
Would you like me to answer your question?
No, because you're not
Oh,
going to
okay,
give an
then I'll
answer to
stop
the
talking.
question I'm asking
Okay.
you.
I'm
You're
trying.
going off on a
I'm
tangent.
trying to answer your question, but if
Why
you.
did you say that the board members are misrepresenting funds? and
So this
DDA?
isn't a yes or no question. So if you'd
Okay.
like an answer, I'd be happy to answer
No.
it, but I keep
If you're
getting
gonna
cut
answer
off.
this
But
question, how did a board member misrepresent DDA funds?
Zach, I'm not quite sure what to go here.
It's, Elizabeth, this is your correspondence. I don't.
I'm trying to answer the question, but I keep getting cut off, so I'm not quite sure how to answer a question if I get cut
If
off,
you can answer
so.
that question, I would welcome you to.
So are you going to let me answer that in its
If you're gonna answer
entirety?
this question, no, I don't want to hear everything that's ever happened.
Nope,
since
that's
you
not what
took the
that's not
position.
what I'm asking.
I want to
Yep.
know what board member manipulated and abused the DDA assets for their own personal gain. That's the question that I'm asking you.
So Deborah McLeod contacted the attorney in regarding to personnel matters, and I was not, the way that my employment evaluation was done was very unfair. I have been
What
trying to,
personal
I'm sorry,
gain?
yeah. So
'Cause you're not
here's
answering
what I'm
your
going to do, Zach, I'm just
question.
going to
Yeah,
choose, I'm
let's-
going to go ahead and
hold on.
just
Ashley was
not
answering
answer.
the
Yeah.
question. I
So are
heard-
you
you
saying
know what?
Deborah
Part of it
McLeod was the
answered.
one? That was what you were referring to?
That's part of it,
The Deborah
right,
McLeod?
exactly,
Okay.
yeah. And when staff has made different things, when we've created plans and we've done all these things, and then it comes through, we can't have this because it's going to take away from our business, that's for personal gain. So I'm not comfortable.
I wouldn't
Going
either if
more
I
into
wrote
this
this
You're
letter.
not, you're not required to answer any
Okay,
questions.
thank you.
Excuse me, I'm not trying to tell the board how to run things, but this is the first board meeting I've ever attended in my 50 years in business where employee actions are not covered in executive session. You know, you have the ability, by state law, to have executive session.
It's in our packet, it's in our,
You don't exercise your dirty laundry in the open
it was
public.
provided in our packet by Elizabeth, which is why it's being
The
addressed.
board chairman makes the decision whether you put it in an executive session.
No,
You
that's
should
not true. It's
have
not true.
employee function.
Sir, this isn't the time for public comment. Thank you. Just so we're clear, the reason why this information is being discussed is because it was provided in our packets. That is why we're discussing it right now.
And it was provided under your request, Zach, for something very specific, which was pulling of funds.
By
and-
sponsors.
By sponsors, and any correspondence with previous existing volunteers as it pertains to the DDA. And I have 66 pages to answer your question. And that letter, was concerning, it wasn't part of the 66 pages, it was in the beginning part here, but there are still some other, as you already mentioned, communications in here that I have no idea how they fall under what you asked for. the email to my neighbor is one of them, she's not a volunteer, I have no idea why that's in there. Correspondence with volunteers, kind of continuing this narrative that it's the climate is the way it is, and we're sorry for that. So I don't know if your question has been answered here, to be honest.
I mean, the questions I had in regards to the public statements that were made were answered and addressed with the extra credit union discussion and the letter from Ruth from Mitt TV, and then some of the volunteer letters that were in there. And I think that's, anything beyond that is, I don't think it has relevance, to be honest with you. And I want to clarify, the sponsor that we provided the money back to was because the event that they gave us the money for was not taking place in the CBD any longer. It's the only reason why funds were returned. So that's just for clarification purposes. That's why I wanted the correspondence, because if it was anything beyond that, we needed to know. And if it was something that this board was doing that was causing that to happen, we needed to take a hard look at that. As far as I'm concerned, that was addressed in a few of the emails that were provided, and I don't think there's anything we're doing that is leading to sponsors being pulled from the DDA. So that answered my question. If anybody else has any further questions,
You and I spoke about some volunteer issues, and there were several people who chose not to do it because they wanted to remain anonymous, and I told them that they would not be accepted if that were the case, so.
That's 100%
So,
true. We do
sure.
not address anonymous letters, so, but that's all, that was just to review correspondence, so we can move along at this point. Line item F for donations.
So I asked for that to be on here. I have asked 7 times for this information, and unfortunately, as a DDA board member, I finally had to fill out a FOIA request to have the most basic of information provided to me, which is really upsetting. But I have a concern with our process for donations, how they're being tracked. And typically when someone issues a donation, they receive a receipt of donation that also explains the terms of that donation. And we have nothing like that. I mean, some of these are saying like via text, email. There's no record of any donation other than 3 that we received, 3 or 4, and a homemade Excel spreadsheet. So I have some concerns in what's on here as donations. What are the terms? Because some things that are being listed as donations are actually not donations. They're loaned items, which is just as valuable and just as much appreciated, but it shouldn't be listed as a donation if there is an expiration or an expectation of return at some point. So those should be listed as loaned items or placed items. And then items that are donated should have a donation receipt that explains what the terms are. Because as we've seen, we received 2 communications, I believe, of people that are saying, well, wait a second, they're coming back on April 24th and 25th, responding to an unknown email that went out from us. We didn't get that part in my FOIA, but who are now going back and putting terms on donations that they've given. So I think that's a bit concerning. I think we need to have all of those terms agreed to at the point that the donation is given, so we have an accurate accounting. On this specific donation form, there are some things I think that are just mislabeled as donations for the renovation. The podcast value that's put on here, appreciate the podcast, and that's great, but it doesn't have anything to do with the renovation, so it shouldn't be listed as a renovation donation. Same thing with the People's Driven Credit Union money for the grand opening. That's not part of the renovation, so that shouldn't be listed there. And then additionally, the $50,000 donation from People's Driven Credit Union should not be listed here. It's not a true donation, according to the lease agreement. It is in lieu of rent, and the way it's written in the lease is that it's in lieu of the rent, and they are receiving the entire sponsorship package. Again, a great relationship. I'm not arguing that, but I'm arguing how we're presenting this kind of creative accounting here of just plugging in numbers where we see fit. There needs to be a true accounting of what actually is a donation, what's a loaned item, what are terms, and there should be receipts, because when people are coming back and saying, hey, if this and this happens, I want to be paid for this, well, that opens up a lot of questions.
Yeah, what are we well, but that was all based on if the DDA is dissolved, correct?
Well, or if we're not in this space anymore, I mean, what does that mean? In 5 years, we have to, if this lease doesn't extend beyond the 5 years? I mean, it's very vague. So what I would say, the reason I asked for this to be put on here is, one, this document that we received is just not accurate. It doesn't really make sense. So I would ask for an appropriate document. And then I would also say that the board, and maybe it's the organization pillar, needs to come up with a donation program. We can't just be accepting things through text and then putting it on saying we've received these things. There has to be a business side of it that makes sense.
I just, really quick though, clarification wise, I'm assuming Plant Moran did this.
They did, correct. And the added on the bottom, because one of the things that Andrea asked for was anticipated additional, and so that's added on there. Yeah, so this was not a homemade document. This was.
No, I'm not talking about this one, the donation chart.
Yep, that was put on below there with connection with Madison and I. Yep, it's all in the same document, it's just
I know,
on 2
but
pages.
I'm talking about this section of it.
Yeah.
Not the billing part, I have that.
Yeah.
This
So-
one that Plant Moran made this with no label or heading or anything on it.
I thought that was page 2.
It's page 2.
But, okay, so then, but someone's giving them this information, correct? I mean,
Correct.
Why are we telling them that a podcast
No.
is part of renovation?
So the expense 721000, this right here, this is 721000. These are true expenses. So what is the second page, where we said donations or in-kind sponsorships not listed above? This is similar. This has been our practice since last Winterfest, when we present our reports from our different events and our sponsors. And so this follows the same procedure that we've been doing for the last 18 months. So this part here, and unless, so for example, on the second item under people-driven credit union, where it says office furniture, conference tables, the monitors, the computers, which are being set up this afternoon, by the way. We don't have dollar amounts on those, and so from an accounting perspective, until we have a value, it doesn't go into our oh shoot, Zach, help me out here. What are they called when you have that in your? No, not a budget item, where it's part of your assets, basically. So it's a scheduled asset within the organization. So this is primarily for your purposes, Andrea. This is just for you all to see. We're not taking this $82,931.96, putting it somewhere and saying that we have all these donations and it's in the bank, because it's not in the bank. These are in kind. So this is very similar to what we've done since last year, and we have not received direction to do otherwise until recently. But a donation policy is absolutely, that is something that you need to do, and we asked that last year. We've been asking for it.
Can I ask?
That can come in at the same time when we start talking about the sponsor.
I was gonna say, is
sponsor.
donation and sponsorship, is that a synonymous, is that that word
Yeah, because I mean,
interchange?
technically, the donors are being given, something in return.
Right, because
for-
I'm like, that, it should be addressed
It's
in what
not
we
a
spoke about.
monetary donation.
And what we spoke about earlier with.
Yes, I
Would
agree.
that-
It should-
Would this
that-
cover it?
that
Or is this
discussion
part,
should- I
this is
think-
a part of what needs to be done?
I think that would come into play with that. It's not gonna be as frequent, obviously, because we don't have another office renovation to do, but if somebody decides they want to donate, chalk for Chalk the
could donate
Walk,
the
or-
coffee,
or
they
the
could
coffee,
don't-
or
whatever.
somebody wants to donate their time for face painting for an event.
Okay.
All those things would have to have some sort of value connected to it, because they're gonna need some documentation for
Right.
their
Taxing, yeah.
accountants as well, I would imagine.
Right, and I don't disagree with that at all. My question is, well, first of all, the 50,000, I think that's, that needs to be looked at, because it's not a pure donation, it's a transaction part of the lease. But some of the other items, why would they be categorized under this category then?
So these are not in the 721.000. This is a separate page, so this is not part of the account. The second page is not part of the accounting.
I understand,
Okay,
but when
so
I
that's-
asked for a list of all the donations that had to do with the renovation, why would a podcast be listed under a donation for a renovation?
Because the podcast that was done specifically had Stephen Schmidt, who is the Chief Experience Officer for People Driven Credit Union. It's directly connected to the renovation. And in connection to why the donation amount that they put for the open house, when Deborah McLeod and I created the event and the presentation to put to the board for asking for the $20,000, she included in there open house expenses and that we should look to get donations for that. So that was part of the reason why this is included in there, based on her
So-
creation of that with me.
Going forward then, different podcasts will be categorized under different, depending on the topic.
That's a great question. I don't know yet. I don't know how you all want to move forward
Well, that's what
with
you did
this type
here.
of thing.
You categorized it here because of the topic. So the next one, whatever that topic is, it would go under that category.
This specifically is related to the renovation in this space, so that's why I put that there, so.
So, but it's not a one-time podcast. That's-
We've done one so far,
But my understanding was it was gonna be
Monthly?
or quarterly, I thought.
monthly.
Monthly. So monthly, each month, it'll be put under whatever category it relates to.
I don't have an answer for you on that one right
But
now.
that's what that
Well,
was
we'll
the
have to-
answer for this.
We'll have to
One
figure out
so far.
those donations and the sponsorships and how we're gonna create that moving forward, because there obviously are some gray lines.
Major issues.
And if I could, so in the sponsorship thing, I know this isn't permanent, so thinking forward, there's a $10,000. If that is what People Driven has given per year, per se, per the lease, and we have given them a package in return, I don't think we should let anybody else trump that in what they're receiving, because they are,
Yeah,
that
you
donation, that
limit it,
amount,
like if-
but on top of it, there's the space use.
Right.
So I would see that as not letting any other sponsorship returnables trump what
Receive
they
the same.
receive.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
valid.
That's, yeah, you
nice.
kinda do it, you have one gold sponsor, or
Yeah.
a platinum sponsor.
You can still
have gold-
donate $10,000, but you're
five
not gonna
gold
get what they get.
Right, right.
sponsors. Yeah, all things that we would have to address, at that time. Any other conversations about donations?
So we're gonna have the organization pillar
I'm
address this?
gonna send out an email to figure
Okay.
out where it best fits, and if anybody has any further input from there, we can.
Okay.
All right, nothing else to address? Board member comments?
Wait,
Oh.
I'm sorry. I was trying to locate this one. I don't know if this falls under, I guess it does. It's under donation. Saucedo Painting, $500 for paint supplies. But yet, we still actually owe a balance of $2,000 if they are not being promoted through social media. Am I right?
No, what he's saying is well, so the exchange, with some of the sponsorships, so for, especially the larger one, the painting and the electrical, the plumbing, and also the carpeting, the discussion around all that is we have our website, we have social media, we have our different events, and by promoting those businesses as sponsors, as partners, they offered to do it at cost, which is a win-win situation, right? The cost was reduced, and we get something in exchange of that. And John and I, we've already promoted a couple different things, and we've put those things out there, and we're still working on some of
Okay,
them.
because
so.
we haven't seen any with Saucedo Painting, but what this receipt says.
What do you mean you haven't seen any?
The $2,000 to be towards advertisement for Saucedo Paintings for 1 year, in addition for the Wayward Wind Band, if playing in the downtown Romeo area, if not fulfilled, to be paid with a check within 30 days of his notice.
Yeah, I, to Marty's point, it's very loose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why we need a donation policy,
Well,
for
I know,
sure.
but we're agreeing to these terms, but there's really, it just says for a year, how frequent, how often, like, if they don't get their reach, are we gonna have to then send this to an attorney when they say, hey, is this a contract? Did we hold up our end of the bargain?
Yeah.
Because if not fulfilled, within 30 days of their notice, they're gonna expect the check back.
I just don't think
they
that-
would do that, and
Right.
because this is kind of the issue with getting into the
Sure.
weeds on this. We need to tighten this up. It's.
I agree with you completely.
I think he's just making sure he's covering his bases, and so are you, but it's very loose, and we need to make sure that we're not potentially liable if all these people come back to us and
Right.
start saying, hey, we need to check. So,
I just think something like this should have been voted on by the board, you know? Deals like that just can't be made.
well, the renovation project was, we gave Elizabeth parameters, and she worked within those parameters, but the details of, yeah. So I think we're all in agreement that we need to tighten things up. And let's look at the positives. It's amazing that in this small community, we're able to get such a high dollar amount of in-kind donations. It shows what people
Oh,
are
I
willing to do
agree.
for their community. So let's look at the positives too.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be addressed. I think that's
Yeah.
what everyone is talking about. You don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Right.
And now we do, and we're going to address it and move forward.
It was a big project that got done in a very short amount of time, and, you know, and to Elizabeth's credit, the space looks fantastic, and we've got a grand opening on Tuesday, May 16th, from 5 PM until 8 PM, so hopefully everybody can come out to that.
Which brings me to my next,
Do
one
you
more.
want to,
Yeah.
board member comments, or is this related to?
Well, I'm not listed on something that I am doing, such as donating food to the open house. But this is just one of the issues that I'm dealing with is, you know, if you're gonna announce one or two, I'm not doing it to be recognized, but if you're gonna announce everybody else, then I should be as well. There were a couple things. You know, I donated lunch for the painters. You announced everybody else but me, and it's just ongoing. And it just gets frustrating. If you
So
do one,
the ones
you
that are
do the
announced
other.
in there for the donors in the director's report, I'd be happy to add that next month. But at the time, she said that you had not donated. Those were all the ones that had donated. At the time, you had done it at a reduced cost. So those are just listed, the donations.
I
But
am
I'll be happy to do
donating
that.
half.
So
I would consider that as a donation,
okay, great.
right?
Thank you.
Board member comments. Andrea?
I'm really concerned about some of the communications that are going out. I don't think we've addressed that issue appropriately here. I hope to see that addressed soon, because this kind of stuff can't continue. It's literally driving a wedge in the community. It's driving a wedge between the board and the volunteers, and to see these things going out is just, you know, it's just terrible. So I think that that's something that needs to be discussed further and not just kind of swept under the rug. It's a serious accusations. We have a board member whose neighbors are being emailed. That's awful. So I think this is something that we need to look at further. As far as the
I'm sorry, if
donations-
any more of this has to do with my position, Zach, I'm asking that this comment section is not in regards to my evaluation, my job performance, because that's my right to have that under. Because that happened last month, and there's no room for me to say anything.
Andrea's addressing information that was provided in our packet.
Okay.
I guess I'm confused.
It was provided by you.
You provided it.
Understood, thank you.
As far as the donations, I want to make sure it's clear. I appreciate all the donations that we've received, and I appreciate the relationship with the People's Driven Credit Union. I just have some concerns in how we're documenting, how we're acknowledging them, and the terms for them. So I'm glad that we're looking at that going forward.
Megan?
I'd just like to thank the board on behalf of the village for continuing to work with us in giving the $2,000 towards the trees. I also want to thank you for getting your budget done in a timely manner so that we can take the next steps we need to do. Definitely appreciate it, and appreciate what everybody does. Everybody does something here, and without all of these wheels going, we could not get anywhere. So thank you to everybody.
Marty?
So as far as receiving emails with questions from people I don't know, you know what, I have several, and I'm not going to answer to the people that I don't know, because when you try to defend yourself is when you get attacked more. So Betty, if you want to, I can answer those questions right now if you'd like. But I would like
You can, or
each one.
Gail has offered her number. I know that's another step, and you're a very, very, very busy person.
No, I would rather address them in front of everybody,
Okay,
because if I don't have the answer for them, maybe somebody else will.
okay,
Because I only have the answer for one question.
okay.
So, but I need you to ask me those questions again.
I don't, this, we're
No?
not getting into a Q&A, it's board member comments, so if you
Okay.
want to comment on anything that was addressed, that now would be the time for that, but
Yeah.
if you two want to have a conversation separately, you're more than welcome to do so after
Well,
the meeting.
the only thing I have information to would be the food trucks. Everything else would have to go through Elizabeth Miller. It has nothing to do with me.
Danielle?
My turn. I would like to start by thanking the community and our CBD business, Main Street Coffee House, for helping raise money for our local elementary school. The students worked hard to create kindness coffee sleeves, and this community, along with another business, Verona Creative, the Poznansky family, and some anonymous donors helped to step up and support this initiative. These are the collaborations I'd like to see promoted and shared on our social media. It's a great example of a CBD business giving back to the community, and we should share that. On a personal note, I would like to share how disheartened I am to see continued narrative shared via our DDA email that is false and misleading. Speaking as one of the 4 new board members who has done nothing but try to help and support the DDA efforts, it's really disappointing to see a campaign to paint me in a bad light reach my neighbors and friends of 20 years. I am asking everyone in the community, if you have questions about my actions, please reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
John?
Very brief, I'm hoping I made some comments earlier in our meeting that was kind of directed towards my board member comments. Any questions regarding anything, as Danielle just said, please reach out to me and ask me, and let's talk. I've had a couple volunteers that I've already spoken with, and been very nice, enlightening, and wonderful conversations. Also, Danielle stole my thunder a little bit. Thank you, the whole community, for this Amanda Moore Elementary School fundraiser that actually ended up being a fundraiser. Thank you, Zach, for the idea. As far as making it a fundraiser, we were just going to give the kids a fun activity to decorate sleeves, and it turned into a great fundraiser. One company didn't mention Stony Creek Veterinary. Thank you so much. So we had, just to be clear, Stony Creek Veterinary, huge donation, an anonymous huge donation, as well as, I know there was one more. Oh, okay. As well as the community. What I'm saying is, each sleeve sold, the community purchased for $1, all of those funds, and then they were matched by Stony Creek Veterinary and another anonymous donor. And then there were some additional donors, Verona Creative and Poznansky family, and, all right, then the third one will be anonymous as well. Thank you very much. It was great, and it was a lot of fun. I know the kids loved them. They're still coming in asking if there's any left, so thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Lee, do we have a second? Second by Hutnick, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.